This week for the Miami Hurricanes is all about the here and the now. North Carolina's coming to town Saturday, a game that was circled on the Miami Hurricanes schedule long before the coronavirus wreaked havoc on our lives and the 2020 football season was thrown into quite a wild ride. Saturday's game will determine whether that's a ride to somewhere. It's not about making it to Charlotte as it was expected to be before all this happened. Back then we had the Coastal Division. We thought that this Miami-North Carolina game would determine the Coastal Division champion. Now, of course, there is no Coastal Division, and the ACC has just been a free-for-all this year with Notre Dame and Clemson standing above the pack, and they are the two teams that will play in the ACC championship game. But this game on Saturday against North Carolina is about defining the entire body of work that we have witnessed since September, which has the Hurricanes at 8-1 and firmly in the top 10 as we head into the second week of December. You win Saturday, and you can almost certainly pencil Miami into the Orange Bowl for a New Year's game, likely against the loser of the SEC championship game between Alabama and looks like Florida. That's talking here and now for sure. The stakes speak for themselves. It's not about what they've done to this point. And we'll talk a little bit tonight about how impressive or unimpressive that it's been, especially when you take a look at the college football playoff rankings that came out tonight and showed that the Miami Hurricanes stayed at number 10, despite that blowout victory at Duke. The committee yawned. I mean, Iowa State, which has 2 losses, moved up to number 7. So, we can discuss that a little bit, why or why not that might have played out that way. But any way you look at it, it's about what they are doing. It's about where they are going. So let's go talk about it in a new edition of CaneSport Live, presented tonight by JFQ Lending, your full-service mortgage provider licensed in more than 40 states. Hello again, everybody. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we welcome you once again to CaneSport Live. As always, this is your show. It'll be driven by your participation. The call-in number is 563-999-3550. That's 563-999-3550. Over 100 open phone lines, as always. Plenty of room for everybody to call in and participate. If you've listened to the show for all these years, you know the drill. You want to come on the show, you hit the number 1 on your keypad. That puts you in the queue. We bring you on the show in the order that you land in the queue. And just took a little peek at that queue, and we got a surprise guy that's landed in that number 1 spot tonight. Not one of your typical guys that occupy it. I don't see Greg there at number 1. I don't see the Mikester Kane at number 1. We got a new number 1 this week, and we'll get to that in a moment. All right, so I told you about the College Football Playoff Selection Committee releasing their new rankings and leaving the Canes at number 10. Texas A&M and Florida remain just outside the top 4. But there is a question about whether number 4, Ohio State, is going to have enough wins to get to even the Big Ten title game after Michigan canceled its game this weekend with the Buckeyes due to the raging coronavirus in Ann Arbor that some people think might have something to do with their disappointing season and the fact that they don't want to pave the way for their arch rival Ohio State to go play for another national title. And by opting out of the game, it's complicating things for sure. So based on the new rule that they implemented before the season that said that a team with 3 or more canceled games would be unable to play for the conference championship, Ohio State's status is in limbo. The Big Ten could ultimately change the rule. There's also a chance they might give Ohio State a game opposite the Big Ten title game to try to get the Buckeyes to 6-0 and possibly give them the resume to get into the playoff. If that happens, it would probably be against an Iowa team that is expected to finish second in its division and also would not be playing for the conference title. We'll see what happens there. As for Miami, I think the Canes are just concerned with finishing the season strong, and they will have their hands full Saturday with North Carolina. when you look at this Carolina game, it seems kind of obvious that the Canes are going to need to score points to win. Carolina's been able to score on pretty much everybody that they've played this year. One of the greatest things Miami has going for it, obviously entering the game, is the general unpredictability of Rhett Lashley's offense, which has made it extremely difficult to defend in pretty much every game this year. They had their ups and downs in a couple of them, but for the most part, Lashley's been dialing it up pretty good, and especially in the last month when we've seen unquestioned improvement by the receivers on the team, all playing well. The running backs are playing well. The tight ends are playing well. You got a lot of dudes on the offensive side of the football playing extremely well for Rhett Lashley right now. And now that we've seen Lashley at work for 3 months, we can really see what makes him successful. And it's the fact that as Carolina game plans this week, it's going to be very difficult for the Tar Heel coaching staff to isolate on shutting down any one specific area of Miami's offense. And I had a chance this week to talk to Lashley about that offensive balance that he's bringing to the stadium each week. You've had so many different guys at different points of the season who have emerged as capable of making plays for you. You know, you essentially have 4 running backs if you include De'Eric in that total. You know, Mike Harley was this little hidden gem over here on a shelf to the side, and then suddenly discovered him in the middle of the season, and he's obviously been unbelievable since. You've got 2 tight ends that are capable of doing big things in any game. Cam Harris comes out and gets 100 yards this week. He's thinking he wants to do the same thing next week, but it may or may not work out that way. And, you know, Don Chaney seems to maximize every touch he gets. Talk about managing that as the coordinator and keeping everybody happy and engaged.
Well, I think there's a couple things. You want all your guys to have that mindset you talked about Cam having, that they want to come out and have a big game every week. There's nothing wrong with that. You want them to have that mindset. I think the best thing is we got guys that play for each other and play together. So we're not managing egos. We're not managing selfish people that want to get theirs. They want to win, and they want us to score points. And they know sometimes one of the running backs may be a hot hand. They know at receiver, you know, 1 week it may be Mike, 1 week it may be D, 1 week it may be Brevin, Will, whoever, Pope, and it doesn't really matter. And so, you know, you can have you know, I'd say this year, whether it be with just all the COVID stuff or injuries, it's kind of usually worked itself out because we very rarely had all of them at the same time. But I think you just worry about trying to call good football plays and put people in position within the system where it fits them and what they do well. But, you know, like we had a 3rd down and 12 the other night, and we had a play designed to get Will in a matchup, and they doubled him, and Mike Harley catches across for 17 yards. That's the way it's designed to work. And when you're not trying to force feed the ball to anybody, and you got guys that yeah, they want the ball, they want to score, they want theirs, but when they're doing what it takes for the team to win, and that's what's important, and you don't as a coordinator have to worry about making everybody happy. We're not trying to make everybody happy here. We're trying to win games. And usually when you win and the team succeeds, the individuals succeed. The individual success come, the individual accolades come. And those guys have really bought into that. You know, whereas in maybe some cases you could give one guy every single carry and he's going to rush for 1,400 yards. Instead, you divide it up, like you said, among 3 or 4, or same thing at receiver. You know, you may not have one guy with 80 to 100 catches, but you got a lot of guys with catches. And that's just kind of been what we thought our MO would be this year, and it kind of has been that way, and that's been good, given the standpoint that each week you never really know who you're going to have.
And as an extension of that, when a defense has to prepare for you, I imagine it really makes them hard to zero in on any one thing. The way you've been approaching offense this whole year, it's not like you could say, oh, we're going to take away the running game, or we're going to take away the passing game, or we're going to take away Harley, or we're going to take away Cam. You really can't really do that the way you guys are playing offense this year.
That's the hope. When you're balanced and you're spreading the ball around, that's what you hope. And it allows you to maybe take more of what the defense is giving you and just – if you're good enough, you can take what they're giving you and you don't have any issues, as opposed to them kind of dictating to you what you have to try to accomplish. Absolutely.
Love that guy, man. He just doesn't he just seem like a cool dude? You know, don't you wish you could just like go and, you know, have a beer with Rhett Lashley and talk offense? And obviously just what a valuable guy he's been to come into the program. And it was great to see him nominated today for the Broyles Award as the top assistant in college football. And I'll tell you what, they better give him some serious consideration, because I can't even begin to imagine that there is an offensive assistant coach out there that has impacted his program greater than what Rhett Lashley has done for Miami this year. And I wouldn't be the least bit shocked if he walks away with that award. In the meantime, Saturday's game is not going to be a walk in the park for Miami's defense either. I mean, Manny Diaz thinks that the challenge that the Tar Heels present Saturday might even compare to what Miami had to deal with earlier this season against Clemson. And here's what Manny had to say about that.
Well, obviously Max got great experience and has had great success at all points of his career, including when he was at North Carolina the first time. He put together a great staff. They've got two very talented coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinator. And then, they had gone through a lot of injuries at North Carolina and had some bad records where they just needed a shot of belief. But there were some players, their wideouts will be the best wide receivers we played this year. The combination of their two running backs is the best 1-2 punch of running back that we've played all year. So the ability for them to put you in a stress because they have great, backs that can run the football, and then they do a great job with their RPO game of trying to isolate. You put too many guys up there worried about the run, then they can beat you with one-on-ones down the field. And Brown and Newsome are as good as anybody in the country at that. They both got speed to create big-time explosive plays, and then they go fast to try to create chaos and get you unnerved defensively. So they do the same thing with their defense. They just try to create a lot of chaos, get after your quarterback, and challenge all the routes down the field. So I think it's a combination of as what you would expect with most really good football teams. There's a combination of some really good coaching, and then there are some good players. And once they caught the belief, then they've been in the top half of the conference since.
So Diaz and defensive coordinator Blake Baker are, I imagine, burning the midnight oil this week, just really trying to hone in on what Carolina's doing offensively, watching extra game film. I mean, this game just means so much to the program. Let's be honest. I mean, when you take into consideration the perceptions of after a win as opposed to after a loss, where people are going to be able to talk about the transfers, then not playing tough competition. There's a million things that people will have in their arsenal to say about Miami if they don't win this football game on Saturday against North Carolina. If they win it, it is a clear sign of the massive progress that's been made this year. You could talk about transfers attributed to whatever you want, Rhett Lashley coming in, but it would be unquestioned. Like, nobody could say that Miami football didn't take a gargantuan step forward here if they beat North Carolina, finish a clear-cut third in the ACC, and earn that Orange Bowl bid. So massive, massive challenge for them. I know they're working very hard on the game plan, and here's what Blake Baker had to say about that as well.
They're extremely explosive. When you look at across the board, I'd say probably the most explosive offense we've seen to date. You talk about their wide receivers. All three of them are very explosive, make tough 50-50 catches. Their running backs are as good as anyone we've seen. They're a great combination, in my opinion, of a power back and a speed back. And then Sam Howell, he's the head of the snake. He does a great job distributing the ball, makes plays off schedule quite a bit with his legs, extending the play outside of the pocket, and then also scrambling for first down. So Coach Longo and Coach Brown have done a phenomenal job there with that offense, and to me, one of the tougher ones to defend. They've got a very complex RPO game. And like I said, when you have explosive playmakers and can distribute the ball in a variety of different ways, they're very hard to defend.
All right, on a couple side notes tonight, we want to give mad props to the Hurricane basketball team. They were trailing 32-14 at halftime tonight to Purdue in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. We're playing just abysmal basketball. If you didn't see the game, it was as ugly as you would ever want to see a basketball team play. And they were able to gather themselves at halftime and turn it around and crank up their defense. And after scoring 14 points in the first half, They scored 44 in the second, end up catching Purdue and winning 58-54 to go to 3-0 on the season. And I should point out that they were playing without their two best players and point guard Chris Likes and freshman phenom Earl Timberlake. You'll start to get a feel for how good that guy is here in another week or two when he comes back from his high ankle sprain. But great accomplishment for Jim Larinaga and his team, hanging in there and finding the way back into that game and then winning it down the stretch. We also want to offer get well soon wishes to cornerback Al Blades. Tweeted out tonight that he's going to miss the rest of the season due to myocarditis, and you've probably never heard of that. And what that is it's a heart inflammation issue, and it was talked about before the season as one of the great fears of playing college football this year, and players getting coronavirus either on campus or in football games or whatever, because there were some that were susceptible to this heart inflammation issue, myocarditis. Well, during Al Blades tested positive for corona, and as part of his treatment, they did some blood work, and the doctors saw something that bothered them, and then they did maybe it was a MRI or what are they? I'm trying to think the word echocardiogram or one of those exams where they take a look at the heart, and they saw this inflammation that they felt like needed to be dealt with and treated. So he's going to be out of football for a minimum of 3 months, and obviously his absence is going to be felt this weekend against North Carolina, where Miami's going to have to rely probably on freshman Marcus Clark and Isaiah Dunson. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well. So let's get out to your calls. The number 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. And in that number 1 spot tonight is our man, James. You did it. You made it number 1. James, welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm doing even better knowing that I'm number 1. I feel great.
How'd you beat those guys to the punch, man? They usually get right in there as soon as the queue opens.
Brother, you set a goal and you keep on going, kind of like the Canes, to be honest with you. I just kept dialing. I was like, I got to do it at least once. I have to do it at least once for Gary. So anyway, but I'm going to tell you something. I have nothing but love, and I'm probably going to sound like a homer, and everybody that's probably going to be on will be like, hey, at the end of the day, it's just Duke. But how many times, and I hate to sound like that broken record, have we gone up against a team like a Duke and played like absolute dog shit? And they were a little rusty at the beginning, fumbled by Knighton at the beginning, but after that, they shook off the cobwebs, and they played extremely well. I mean, I'm not going to say it was absolutely dominant because there were a couple of things here and there, but it was as solid of a game that I have seen in 3 years. They looked prepared. They looked excited to play. They played together, and it was fun as a fan to watch. I was jumping in my living room like an idiot, and I said, I don't care that it's Duke. I'm glad that we're actually doing this to a team like we were supposed to be doing all along. I felt. Now, I know what we talked about earlier was what Manny said, but what I'm excited about more than anything was we saw younger guys stepping up, and they were making tackles, Gary. I talked about it at the beginning of the year, how atrocious our tackling was, and I think you pointed out to me could have been because of the spring, could have been because of the lack of practices, the cohesiveness. I get it. But they showed a team playing game number 9, and it was fantastic to see, and it was a breath of fresh air. And I really liked what I saw from the younger guys. And again, it was Duke, but I've seen our better players show up against teams like a Duke and do absolutely nothing and play absolutely to the level of their competition, and we didn't do it. And I just have to just say how proud I am of that. Now, starting about this week with North Carolina, how do you feel, Gary, our offensive line matches up against their defensive line in the trenches, and can we score? If our defense is going to have some issues, do you feel that if it is a track meet, our offense can keep up, especially with what Rhett Lashley and you talked about this week as well?
Yeah, I do. I think the winner of this game is going to be the one whose defense plays the best, and I do think that we can keep up with their offense. You look at the way that all these guys on the offensive side of the ball have been performing over the last month or so, and you're seeing consistency. You're seeing good performances across the board. Every position group is showing up every Saturday. And you talked about the Duke game. Now, listen, we talked about it on last week's show. Duke wasn't going to be into that game. I was shocked that they took it. I really was. There was no way in hell that team, after giving up 56 points 2 weeks in a row, and sitting there at 2-7, was going to have their heart into playing a game this week. When you factor in especially all the things these kids go through, and so no, they weren't into it. But at the same time, when you watch the Hurricanes, play on Saturday, the thing that struck me was how engaged everybody was. Like, they're playing this team that's 2-7, that really couldn't care less about being there, but they didn't let that impact how they showed up, and I thought that was the most impressive thing. I don't overreact to too many of the individual things, although I did like Corey Flagg's performance. I thought he was moving around better than we've ever seen him. But Amen. I don't overreact to too much of the other stuff in the game. But I do overreact to this because it showed. To me, it was like the story of the 2020 season, and I just think that what Manny Diaz and Miami have done this year is they have managed this season and what has come with it maybe better than anybody in the country. I mean, obviously teams like Alabama have more talent than us and that kind of thing, but just the way they've handled all of the distractions and the adversity and guys getting sick and everything, and you have coaches sick. They're not even talking about some of these things that are going on. Position coaches with coronavirus, the team trainer with coronavirus, who's an older guy that people were a little worried about for a few days and stuff like that. Like, this team's been through a lot, yet they have not allowed it to impact their performance on the field. And that's what impressed me about the Duke game. And that's why I feel good about this game Saturday. I do think that it's going to be without question, that if not the first toughest, certainly the second toughest, obviously, test for the defense. But I think that that if the secondary can hold up and not having Al Blades and being down to basically two corners that have played a lot of football, I think that's very significant. But to answer your question, I do think the offense has the capability of keeping up. I expect it to be a shootout, and I think it'll be a tight game into the fourth quarter.
Good deal. I agree with you 100% with what you said, Gary. The thing that I also wanted to touch on before I lose my train of thought with it, we talked about Rochet and Phillips, and they have really come on. And I think Rochet started off slow last year before he went on that tear at the end of the year. And, of course, this is kind of a money game, I think, for him, especially with who he's going to be matched up against. If he can get back there and disrupt their backfield and get to Howell, if Carolina's going to be focusing more on Phillips, this could be a big opportunity for him. And that's the other thing, too. Can our DBs hold up if our defensive line can get the pressure up front that they were generating against Duke? Now, granted, I'm sure Carolina's O-line's way better than Duke's, but at the same time, our defensive line has been the strength, or I feel like it's been the better of the units going into the season, and they're starting to live up to the hype more than anything. And if they can disrupt that and keep Howell off balance, I think that right there might give the cushion that's needed for the Miami offense to maybe get up a touchdown or two, and that changes the dynamic in the play calling for North Carolina, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they can come back. I mean, they've had some rough first halves this year, and they've come back pretty good. So you're never really comfortable with this team. They're that explosive. They got two good running backs. So you heard Manny and Blake talk about them.
Yes.
They've got, a stable of receivers that can play, a couple good running backs, the quarterback obviously. So this team can flip a switch. So you're never comfortable against these guys, but. hey, I mean, look, you couldn't feel better about where Miami's at coming into this game. I mean, they've done everything they were supposed to do. They've taken care of business each week, and it's time. I'm not going to call it a final exam because it's not a final exam, but we'll call it the fourth quarter exam before the final exam. How about that?
Yeah,
and
the fourth quarter test before the final exam, which would be the Orange Bowl against the Gators. So absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And listen, I mean, people are going to judge the season more so by what happens in this game than what would happen in a bowl game against the Gators or Alabama or Texas A&M or whoever they end up playing. I mean, they're going to judge the season by this game on Saturday because other than Clemson, there's no other game to judge, quite frankly. Let's be honest. This has been a season full of games against very average teams. Everybody around the ACC, as usual, is just taking turns beating each other. NC State might be the next best team. I mean, it's really just been a season of nothing. Not playing a great team, a highly ranked team other than Clemson. So this game right here is what's going to determine how people look back at the season.
Absolutely. And I think that we said that going into it, even before the schedule change and everything of that, with adding Clemson to the schedule. I think that this was going to be the game that was probably going to determine your coastal winner. Maybe Virginia Tech was kind of in the talks or what have you when they did have the two divisions before they obviously changed it. Another point that I wanted to bring up, Gary, that you mentioned, I think Miami has handled the COVID. I agree with you, not just because this is a Miami show, better than any other program in the country right now. I can also point, you mentioned Alabama. Yes, they have a superior of talent, but you look at Tuscaloosa's population compared to the city of Miami and how many people come and go in that city. I mean, it's unbelievable of how well we've managed and gotten this many games in. So major props to Manny Diaz. And I will say that I really believe, should Miami come out victorious this week, and I think that we are going to win by 13 points. That is my prediction right now. I believe that we're going to win by 2 touchdowns. I think that Miami's going to come out focused. I think that it left a bad taste in their mouth last year that they let one get away. If we had Borregales last year, we win that game in Chapel Hill, as shitty as a start that Miami had last year. And it's a game that gets under my blood thinking about. I hate losing to these guys. I've been to Chapel Hill multiple times and watched us lose against teams that we had no business losing to when we were the better team. 2004 comes to mind more than anything. And this team has been a thorn in Miami's side, whether Butch Davis was their coach, Fedora, now Mac Brown. And the thing is that we have an opportunity on Saturday to kick the absolute shit out of them. And the thing is are they good? Yes. But I'm just saying, if Miami comes out focused and engaged, and we catch them napping in the first half like they did against Florida State, there is not going to be a comeback by them. I think that we shut the door on them and really go for the throat and start getting this program back to what I believe and many of the Canes fans want again. And the thing is, if we do get this done on Saturday, which I truly believe, you have got to agree with me that Manny Diaz, no doubt, is ACC Coach of the Year. Gary, I'm out. Go Canes.
All righty, James. Thanks for getting us started tonight. Appreciate it. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. Hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go out now to the 305. You're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
What's up there, Gary? How you doing?
Doing great. Who's this, Shmira?
You got it.
I thought I recognized that voice. How you doing, man? How you been?
It's been a while, Fatherhood has got me busy during the week, so at least I could get on right before the end of the season.
You had a baby? Congratulations.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, you get older, it actually was a good season that I got to stay home for a little bit, see the baby grow up.
There you go.
That was good. I get nervous, and I know you too. Is Miami turning the corner here, or is this just a little bit of one of those seasons where things just are falling the right way, kind of like, a few years back, and next year we're going to get ready for a huge regression, with all of these. I think the main thing we'll see, if some of these guys, and they really believe in the coaching staff and they're really building something here, I think that they would stay and try to make something of this, or are they just here for a one-year rental?
I don't.
If all these, what, you think they're all leaving?
They got it. Yeah, they are. They got to go. They're not. We would love to see them obviously come back because it would make things look brighter for next year. But you look at De'Ara King, Quincy Rochet, Jalen Phillips.
Where is De'Ara King going, Gary? Where is he going?
I'm being told that he's played himself into the mid to late rounds, so he could go somewhere in the 4th, 5th, 6th. It's just going to depend on the team. I think teams like Arizona, Baltimore might see some value in him because they could, they don't have to change their offense for him. It's a similar style. Maybe a team looks at the success that those teams are having with the quarterbacks they're having it with and wants a change of pace guy, a guy that they could throw in there for, in the Wildcat or things like that. So there's going to be some teams I think that are going to look at what he does and his skill set and see some value in it. They're not going to, invest the 1st or 2nd round draft pick in it. But, once you start getting down into 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere in there, I think he's got a shot to be drafted, in that ballpark area. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe 5th round, but we'll see. But, I mean, the bottom line for the conversation that you're talking about is there's just no point to him coming back and doing this again. He just did it. It's not like his draft status. If he comes back and does the same thing he just did this year and has another good season, that his draft status is going to be markedly changed. It's not like he's still going to be the same rated draft prospect. So I would be absolutely stunned if he were to come back. I had a story this week where I had pretty solid source told me that De'Ara King and Mackenzie Milton had a conversation recently, the Central Florida quarterback who had gotten hurt, who's now in the transfer portal looking for a home. And I heard that Milton had spoken to De'Ara King about Miami and, wanted to consider Miami and wanted to make sure that King was not coming back. And I was told that King told him that he is not coming back. So that's the best I've got to go by right now on that. You look at what Jalen Phillips and Quincy Rochet have done this year, the way they've played. Phillips, who's had concussion issues early in his career, has made it through healthy so far. He finishes the season healthy. I don't see any chance he's going to come back for what? Like the guy's played like a beast here for most of the season. Probably at worst would be a 2nd round draft pick. So I don't see any question that he's going to go out. Quincy Rochet is moving up on the draft charts. Also could be a 2nd round pick. The pros love him as a hybrid linebacker, like a guy that can do a lot of different things, and maybe in like a 3-4 defense. So I think Rochet's got he's got no reason to come back. He's going to be a high draft pick. So those guys I would think are definite. You look at a Jose Borregales and you say, hey, maybe he wants to play with his brother, but like, why? I mean, like he couldn't be
your brother. What they're the same position though, right?
Yeah, well, that's my point. And like he couldn't be any better right now either. I mean, look at the season he's having. He's missed 1 kick. I think that was just a little rust the other day. He just let up a little bit, but he's missed 1 kick the whole year. The other one was blocked. So he's been kicking at an NFL level. If there's any time he's going to try to go into an NFL camp and win a job, I think it's now. I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back. I would say the same thing about Lou Hedley, except he wants to get his education. God bless him, and he's told the coaches he's coming back. So Hedley will be one for sure that looks like he's coming back. But what is more important to me, because you kind of expected those guys to be 1-year loners, so to speak, is the Cam Harrises, the Nesta Silveras of the world. Like, don't start getting crazy ideas and declare yourself early for the draft and go out there and be late round draft picks or something. Back on the team, correct. 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 Right. So like, that's what you don't want to see. You don't want to see guys like that, like we've had so many in the past, start making bad decisions. But these guys you knew pretty much were going to be 1-year loners, and that gets back, I think, to your original point was what do you make of all this? And I personally don't think we can make anything of it right now. I mean, if we want to put our optimist hat on, we can say pound our chest, say the Canes are back, brag all over the internet, whatever you want. But I don't feel that it's at that point where we can do that. I think this has been a great season. I think we've benefited from having older players in these transfers that are impact players who have, every single one of them has impacted the season significantly. And I think that's a big deal that they're older. You know, you're seeing a lot of these teams struggling with younger players. Like, we just take it for granted now, but nobody in the country really had spring practice. And that's a big deal if you're a young football team. It's not as big a deal if you're playing with a fourth-year guy or something that's played a lot of college football, like, you know, De'Ara King or Jalen. You know, well, Jalen Phillips has been hurt, but Quincy Rochet has played a lot of college football, and these are the guys that have been carrying the team. And I think Miami's had some built-in edges maybe that we kind of didn't really think about early in the year as we're looking forward. Although, you know, I felt from the beginning that they would be at least a 9-win team this year. I just didn't see too many teams on the schedule that would be able to play with us. And I was kind of surprised by some of the close games, to be honest. But, you know, I don't think that we could take this and just assume that for the next 2, 3, 4 years that everything's hunky-dory and now we're going to be competing with Clemson for the ACC title every year and we're going to be winning the Coastal every year. I don't think we can assume that. I really don't. I think that, you know, there's a lot of development that's going to have to take place, assuming these guys do leave. And, you know, you're almost starting from scratch again.
All right. Well, let's be honest. Miami had one major test to get a barometer of where they stand, and they failed miserably. So let's, yeah,
but I don't look at it like that, Shmira. I really don't look at it like that because I didn't expect them to be able to play with Clemson. I knew Clemson was a much better football team. You know, so I'm not. To me personally, I mean, everybody takes everything as they choose in their own way and everything. Me personally, I thought the Clemson game was great because it was a level of competition that they need to keep seeing. Because they're like, you know, just like you keep saying, like, what do you make of it, you know, or what you said at the beginning of the call, you know, what do we make of this? And we just talked about it. The worst thing that could happen to this coaching staff and this program and this athletic director and really everybody in the complex is to start thinking the Canes are back, we're back. We just went 9-1, we went 10-1, we're back. You know, and then you know come back next year and go 8-3 or 7-4 or something like that, and it's just business as usual of what we've seen for the last 20 years. It's like you have to know that there is a bar out there that you are not close to right now, and you have to keep an eye on that bar. And when you go recruit every single day, you need to understand that you need to be reaching for better players than what you have in the past. And you know, anything that gets any eyes off of that prize, to me, is the biggest negative in the world. So I love that we played Clemson. I love that we got to see where the bar was, and you know that we firmly know where it is, and they can do business accordingly. You know, I mean, and that's what they need to do, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't mind this whole transfer business. You know, I think it's got a little bit too out of hand. This year's a little wacky because of the eligibility. But if you start relying on that, I don't think you're ever going to be able to really reload a roster. I think you're going to have a lot of pieces, you know, mismatching across the way when things get back to normal times. I mean, I don't mind going out and getting a quarterback, something similar to what an Oklahoma might do, and then basically just kind of fill the roster. But if you start every year taking 5 and 6 transfers, you're just going to have a really mismanaged roster from what I think I've even heard Matt mention that. I mean, that's not
absolutely.
A good long-term solution to this.
Yeah, and you know what? This was a little bit of a fluke, Schmiler, because if you look at it, you know, De'Ara King wouldn't have never been here if it weren't for Lashley, who got hired and then brought him, you know, was able to help get him here. Bubba Baldwin and Jalen Phillips were connections through Brevin Jordan and Tate Martell, really, from high school. I'm trying to think. Well, Quincy Rochet, I don't think that there's a backstory there. But you know, the point is that you can't count on getting transfers of this level every year. There's no doubt about it. And I think Manny knows that. He knows that the way to build this program is exactly what you said, through traditional recruiting. And I think they're trying to do that. And they're very happy with the recruiting class that's going to sign here in 8 days from now. You know, I think they're happy with it. We'll talk next week about how great it is or isn't, or is it really, you know, is it really the kind of class that's going to change the program? But the coaches feel good about what they've been able to do simply because of the challenges of not being able to travel, not being able to have players come in and visit campus. And they really had to make a decision, which they would do anyway normally, but they centralized their recruiting around Dade and Broward County. And that was really the best they can do. And they've done it. They've gotten most of the players to come. So you got to give them credit for that.
Well, I mean, that was a major advantage on their part. I wouldn't call it a disadvantage, right?
It was a huge advantage. Huge
advantage. I mean, they
yeah.
got lucky. I mean, they got not lucky. I mean, but it fell into their laps that they just happened to be in the biggest recruiting hotbed, and the only team really to be coming down here and taking players seems to be Alabama. I mean, other than I don't think I think Florida's got a few here. Obviously, FSU's a disaster. But, I mean, you haven't really seen as many teams cherry pick our top talent like they have been in the past. So, I mean, it's a major advantage. How do you think Miami finishes here, the next, I don't want to say the next week, but closing out this whole class?
Yeah, and no coronavirus. I don't know that they get Leonard Taylor and James Williams. It worked out perfectly. I mean, everybody thought that Taylor was going to go to Florida and Williams was going to go to Georgia, and it was done. And coronavirus came and it changed with both those guys, which is obviously great for us. So we'll see how it all plays out down the road. But I think obviously they're happy. They did a good job with the local kids this year. Looking forward, I think they need to do a better job upstate. There's, I think, 18 top 100 players from the state of Florida this year, and we're getting 2 of them. So there's a lot of improvement that can be made in that regard. We are not a player on the national stage for top 100 kids, and there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done there. So, I don't think that we could sit here and say the Canes are back. I mean, there's so much more to reach for, and that's why I think it's important that they keep reaching for it and they keep understanding that Miami will not be back until they conquer those hurdles.
All right, last question here. Just kind of getting off the subject, what happened with those kids that all went to Nebraska last year? I think there's probably like 5 or 6 kids that went up there and they all transferred. Like, what happened?
I don't know.
About that?
I don't want to speculate. I mean, you probably can start guessing that some things fell through and things like that, and things weren't what they were supposed to be, or whatever. But they all bailed on it.
Every one of them.
Yep, I know.
Right. I wonder if you have to pay a refund for that.
So I mean, but I don't want to speculate because we don't know, but you can kind of like assume some things where you might not be too wrong.
I mean, I've never seen every kid from South Florida. I think there's 5 or 6 kids literally just transferred within a football season. You really don't see that, at least that quickly. I mean, because I think we both know. I mean, normally when kids transfer schools, other than this little thing that's going on in Miami right now, like a Jalen Phillips, you really don't see it. Normally, they don't end up too much. This is in the past. Maybe things have changed a little bit now. But normally, when kids start transferring here and there, it does not end well. They're normally better off just to stay where they were. This is back when you used to have to sit out a year and stuff like that. But I mean, what? Oh well. All right, Gary. Well, hopefully they.
All right, Smyra.
You got it. Good.
Pleasure talking to you as always.
All right, I'll be in touch. You got it.
You got it. Bye-bye. All right, 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's take a few moments now to do our weekly check-in with our CaneSport managing editor, Matt Shodell, who's had a busy night tonight between writing about the basketball game and and then the other news we got tonight out of nowhere, Al Blades announces that he's not going to be able to play anymore this year because of this myocarditis thing. A lot going on, Matt. How you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I mean, I feel bad for Al, poor guy.
He's such a nice kid.
Really nice guy, team leader. Yeah, All
right, so let's talk about that first. Al Blades not going to be in the lineup. You got, basically to Corey Couch, DJ Ivy sitting there who at corner, who have played a lot of football against probably the best passing team that we're going to play this year. These guys might throw the ball even better than what Clemson did when they played us. Certainly as proficient. So what effect do you think, Matt, that Al Blades not being there Saturday is going to have on the game?
I mean, certainly it's a big effect, but, a lot of people picture North Carolina as this heavy passing team, but in reality, they run the ball a lot more than they pass. So I'm much more concerned about the linebackers than I am the cornerbacks. North Carolina does have a couple of really good wide receivers, but, DJ Ivy and Corey Couch can deal with that, and Marcus Clark and Isaiah Dunson can pick up the pieces on the other guys. But trying to stop the run game, to me, is the biggest deal, because if you can't stop the run, and really nobody's been able to, I think those two backs combined average over 6 yards a carry, and one of them's over 7 yards a carry. It's just tough if you can't stop the run. So that's got to be Miami's first order of business, in my opinion. And yeah, cornerbacks are concerned when you have Sam Howell and some pretty good receivers and a lot of depth on that team. But, I mean, you can almost point at every position except for defensive end at Miami and say there's a problem because, defensive tackle, even if John Ford and Jared Harrison Hunte are back, are they going to be in full game shape? They're going to miss, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on when they got on that unavailable list and were able to start practicing again. It's like Duke, to me, everyone that said how great it was against Duke and how it's such a feel-good game. I mean, Duke was the worst team I've ever seen. They just didn't even want to be there. You could just tell.
Yeah,
watching that
from
game.
the first
Miami
play. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and Miami didn't miss tackles, and Miami did play really well, but it definitely helps when your opponent just seems to have no interest in even trying to win the game. So, I sort of throw that game out of the window, and I hope Miami realizes that, this is a whole different animal. So, on Miami's defense, I'm really concerned about defensive tackle, linebackers. And we know the cornerback depth is thin, so really the safeties and defensive ends are the only ones I feel good about. Miami's going to have to score a lot of points, I think, to win the game, in my opinion.
Well, they have some interesting decisions to make for sure. The conventional wisdom would be you got to go after Sam Howell and make him uncomfortable in the pocket because he is such a good passer and he's got those receivers and everything. But I think with the way that Quincy Rochet and Jalen Phillips have been playing, that you almost got to take your shot at doing it in the conventional way, and maybe not leaving yourself exposed on the back end. With the linebackers and DBs, especially with only two corners. I mean, I don't like the idea of the freshmen having to be out there playing a lot of cornerback. I really don't. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you expect Rochet and Phillips to just be able to get after the quarterback, then they're not going to be really helping as much against the run as they have to. I mean, North Carolina runs that RPO so well that it really prevents excellent ends who are excellent pass rushing ends from just going upfield and trying to get to the quarterback, because they have to look out for that run game, which is so dangerous. So, if you do only rush 4, let's say, it's just there's that extra split second or second where they have to make sure it's not actually a run. And now you got some questionable cornerbacks. If you bring pressure and there's a bust in the back end, or, somebody doesn't do something right now, it's a big play. So what I would hope they're going to do is mix it up a lot and not just constantly go 4-man rush or constantly blitz. They really have to, look, Sam Howell's still in his second year. I know he's been excellent, but, look what Notre Dame did to him, right? He had 160 yards passing if you take away the 151-yard explosive play. And even with that, he didn't do as well as he normally does. So look at the Notre Dame film, see what they did, see how they confused Howell, see how they were able to sort of shut down that offense that's only scored under 30 points in 3 games all year, and take a memo from that and then put a little twist on it, because that North Carolina is going to expect some of that, So take some of that, put a twist on it, and that's what Miami's got to do. So, hopefully they come up with some sort of answer, because if they're just consistently trying to do one thing, it's just not going to work.
All right, on a recruiting note, we've been writing an awful lot of stories about Jake Garcia in the last several days. Partially because
never heard of him,
right? Yeah, partially because it's such a big deal, obviously, because he's a quarterback and all, but also that the way this thing has played out in recruiting this year, there's really not a ton of mystery coming down the stretch here. So it's the most interesting thing to write about that Jake Garcia, the California quarterback product, decommits from USC when he gets upset at them recruiting a third quarterback, which to me is like, hey, Jake, we don't want you anymore. Like, kind of like how, Miami's gotten rid of a couple guys here, down the stretch, like Savion Collins and Tim Burns. But, you just send them signals so that way you don't have to like tell them that you're taking them off the commit list. They figure it out themselves. But, so that reopened his recruitment, and Miami has been sitting there recruiting him very, very hard all along, and the fan base has gotten involved, and football alumni have gotten involved, and current players have gotten involved. It's really been a love fest, unlike we ever get to see very much in recruiting. So where does this end, Matt? I'm a little shaky about some of the vibes that we've been kind of getting, and I wonder. He transfers from California to Valdosta, Georgia, which I think is like within like an hour of Florida State. Like I haven't looked up the exact number of miles, but it's not that far from Florida State. And Florida State's offensive coordinator had a relationship with Jake Garcia already, and Florida State badly needs a quarterback. And it just, to me, it looks like there's a lot of pieces to a puzzle that seem to fit there, but us and everybody else keep speculating that Jake Garcia's coming to Miami. In your mind, where does this end?
I mean, it's an unknown right now. I've been in touch with Jake's dad. Jake's so tied up with school and football and in different things he's doing right now. So, just talking with the dad about it, I do think that they're trying to go through a sort of a mini process. What concerns me most is that usually at that stage with a quarterback who's already been recruited by Miami, sort of knows everything about Miami. He's going to know because he can't visit again. He's already visited twice, and I believe once with his family. So they sort of already know everything about Miami. So why on earth, when you decide to decommit from USC, why don't you say, I'm committing to Miami? Like, that's what I don't understand. Why go through a whole new process? I mean, they flat out told me that the only schools they've been in touch with over the last couple of months consistently are Miami and USC. So you're right. There could be something else going on here where they do want to do due diligence. Obviously, they're not 100% sold on Miami just yet. I do think that they're more sold on Miami than they are anywhere else, but not to the point, obviously, where they're ready to make a decision, which is, not great for Miami when you're talking about signing day being in less than a week, and not great for Miami when they talk about potentially, I guess there's a way you could just sign a financial aid agreement. You could sign with multiple schools if you really want to, and you don't even wind up signing on signing day. You just, pick your school when you need to report there for school. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if it comes down to that, just because Jake is so busy right now with his football season and trying to help that team win a championship. And they do seem a little confused in terms of where to go now. I mean, you have to remember, and I feel bad for them, because you have to remember, a little over a week ago, they honestly were set on going to USC. Like, there was no second doubt. They were going. Like, that was it. They hadn't even really considered being recruited by anybody else.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it became apparent to them, oh, my gosh, USC is not really, basically USC told them, we're just going to take one other quarterback. Is that okay with you? Yeah, no problem. And then all of a sudden, there's another quarterback, and they got word the morning of, hey, just so you know, we're taking another quarterback if we can. And, didn't ask, is that okay? Will that affect you? Nothing like that. So that's basically, like you said, saying,
yeah, they clearly didn't care. Right. Yeah. They clearly were dumping them. They didn't care.
Basically saying it's not dumping them, but saying you're basically the number 3 guy on our list, because they already took another, and now they want a different guy in addition to you if they told you they're only taking one other. So anyway,
yeah, but I don't believe they would have taken 3.
The point is Miami fans need to be patient with them, because it's a really nice family. They are basically starting over in 1 week and trying to make a lifetime decision, and that's a lot to ask for a dad who's trying to leave the decision up to his son, who's a high school kid, right? The dad, and look, I have one son in college and one who's going to college, and I don't want to tell them where to go, right? Because you don't want it to be your fault if something happens. You want that kid to say, these are my pros and cons. This is where I want to go. And then you're like, okay, go for it. It's your life. You know, you don't want to say, I don't think so. Go here instead. And then it doesn't work out there and you're the bad guy, right? So Jake's in the middle of school. He's trying to graduate early. He's still got a class to finish. He's doing football practice every single day. He can't take visits. He barely can fit in time to talk to the coaches between going to sleep and waking up and all this other stuff and going to practice. So it's difficult for them, you know, and I feel for them, and it's going to take time. I do think at the end of the day he'll be a Hurricane, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think there will be some drama, and it's certainly not 100% he's coming here.
And the thing I would say to everybody out there is, like, I don't know that this is worth having a heart attack over. You know, like, I think he's a good prospect. We had a chance to watch him, I guess it was like a year and a half ago now, when he came and he threw for Dan Enos at the summer camp. And, yeah, I mean, he can make the throws. You know, he showed some decent ability, but I mean, I don't think that you're going to shut down the program if he doesn't come, and I don't think it's a slam dunk. I really don't. I think Florida State is a hidden factor in this thing, and I'm very, very suspicious of the fact that he decided to move from California to Valdosta, Georgia, which just happens to be up the road from Florida State. So we'll see. You know, I know he ended up then having to make another move more towards the Atlanta area, but I don't know. I just like sometimes connect the dots on those things. And when we asked him after the game last week about Miami, he seemed to hesitate a little bit. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I think there's still some drama there. And then, of course, had the story this week about Mackenzie Milton and, you know, talking to De'Ara King and possibly considering Miami as well. So if we're looking for drama for this recruiting cycle, I think we found it. It's in the quarterback derby that's going on here. And, you know, we'll see what happens over the next week or so. Maybe, you know, reach a final decisive move with these guys here in the next several days. And we'll obviously be following that at CaneSport.com. So, Matt, before we let you go, what happens Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium?
Oh, boy. Well, I hope that the scoreboard can put up a lot of numbers very quickly without any breakdowns, because I do think it'll be a high-scoring game. I do think Miami will win. You know, North Carolina's got a pretty average defense. I just don't see them stopping Miami a whole lot. And I do think Miami has enough to where they can cause some problems. You know, the key really is, I mean, you mentioned the defensive ends for Miami. Miami has to use them in the right way. And if they can sort of get to Sam Howell and really rattle him once in a while, and if the defense can turn into a couple of big plays, that can really turn the game around. Miami also, I think, has an edge on special teams. But this is the second toughest game of the year, and, you know, we're sitting here with an 8-1 team, and I'm still not ready to say this is a great team. I mean, they're a good team. I think they're verging on a very good team. If they beat North Carolina soundly, I'm going to say they're an excellent team, but until that happens, I mean, this really is the only other real game in my mind, other than Clemson, that Miami's going to play all regular season. I mean, you go through it. You know, UAB, Louisville, Florida State, awful. Pittsburgh's okay, not great. Virginia's okay, not great. NC State, Virginia Tech's average. Duke's awful. I mean, who have they beaten? Yep. You know, so this is the game. This is the game where we find out if Miami – an excellent team. And
Carolina's wet the bed a little bit this year too. I mean, they lost a couple games.
Carolina lost to Florida State. But I mean, but they're a good team. Like that
was my point. My point is they're a good team, and they're going to come down here looking for a little redemption themselves because of how they screwed up their season. I got to think that while we saw Duke totally disinterested last week, I think we're going to see North Carolina very interested this Saturday.
Yeah, and I almost hate that Miami's coming off this Duke game. To me, it's like last year or the year before, Miami would lose a game and just go into the dumps. I hate that Miami's going into this game feeling so good about themselves. Like, I never like that for a team. That really worries me because you know how it is with kids. Like, I've coached, you know, not at that level, but I've coached some kids that are up to the high school level. And those kids win a big game, and everything's great, and they're not focused in practice, and everything's rah-rah, and everything's going to be great, and we can just walk in and win a game. And, like, I hope Miami has learned the lesson of the past from the losses. I mean, that it's the same thing with the big wins. You can't just assume that, oh, my gosh, look, we just killed Duke. We're amazing. No, I mean, Duke's awful. So
I'm with you, man.
Be honed in and ready to go.
I'm with you all the way on that, and it's like I think as a fan base, in our case, as covering the team for all these years and everything, we're all together. We so badly want to see Miami get back to being Miami again, and it's to the point where if you win a couple games and it just doesn't even matter how they won them, and we just want to feel like we're Miami again, and we're all guilty of it. I mean, it's not, there's nothing wrong with it, but and I said this a few minutes ago on one of the calls, like, the worst thing that can happen to this program is to start thinking it's arrived, because it has so far to go. And, all you got to do is look at the last 4 or 5 recruiting classes and what's going on. I mean, so far to still go. And the pedal cannot come off the metal, and that'll certainly be the case on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be fun, and, we'll talk about it again next week. So, Matt, we'll next week, I guess we'll talk a little recruiting. We'll go over the recruiting class and just update everybody on where all these kids stand and that sort of thing. And I guess we'll play the Georgia Tech game. It's funny, I got a call from somebody at Georgia Tech today. They said, "Does Miami really want to play this game?" And I said, "Yeah, I think Miami really, I think Miami really would, because on the face value, what's the point of a December 19th game against Georgia Tech? I think they have 3 wins this year, and their season's pretty much over. And so, the guys, does Miami really want to play this? Like with the suggestion being, why does Georgia Tech want to play it? But the way they're selling it up there is as a bowl game for them. We're going down to Miami and playing our bowl game, and so I think they'll come, and they'll be interested in playing, and we'll see what happens in that one. So we'll talk about that more next week as well. So Matt, thanks as always for joining us here and being part of the show, and we'll do it again soon.
Perfect.
He's Matt Shodell, our managing editor at CaneSport.com, and some interesting stuff to talk about this week. All right, the number is 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the number 1 on your keypad if you would like to come on the show. Let's see where we're at here. We're going to the 845, the home of our man Greg. Greg, welcome back to CaneSport Live. Sorry that you had to wait. I know you like to be number 1, but a couple guys beat you to it this week. How you doing, Greg?
That's fine. How are you?
Doing good. Clear your voice a little bit, man. Your throat's sounding like it's got a frog in it a little bit.
How you doing?
Doing good.
I want to start out by asking everything if he still thinks Duke was going to give us a tough time. That was a really genius comment he made last week, let me tell you. Anyway,
yeah.
Let's
I'm sure he's in the queue here somewhere. I'm sure he'll be on a little later. We'll ask him about that.
Ask him that. Okay. As you know, I'm not a big Manny guy, but I got to give him kudos. He had the team ready to play, and he is the king of the transfer portal, and he's definitely going to have to do it again this year. Let me ask you a question about this linebacker from USC. One of your genius posters said he's slow and he's not good. This guy is unbelievable. If they don't take
it seems like he would be. He was a 5-star, but why is USC just letting him leave? Like, there's more to the story. I got to do some checking on that. Why what?
Why did Bubba Baldwin leave?
Similar. There were some issues there. There were some issues that kind of soured things for him there.
I saw in your article he wouldn't elaborate on the reason for leaving.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so there's a hidden story there. I mean, I know he lost his starting job, right? He lost the starting job and basically packed it up and said, "I'm out of here."
I don't know. Have you watched his tape?
There might be more to it. I have not watched his tape yet. We spoke to him. He basically told us that it's not the slam dunk that he's going to Miami. Like it was being packaged on Twitter by Brevin Jordan, and so we'll see.
Okay. I think you elaborated and said there's not a chance De'Ara King's going to come back next year.
I don't believe there is.
Okay. If that's the case, we have to go into the transfer portal for either Mackenzie Milton or this kid from Liberty. This kid.
Well, I think they are talking to Mackenzie Milton. In fact, I know they are. I broke that story this week. The kid from Liberty, I'm not as certain about. I know Rhett Lashley followed him on Twitter a couple weeks back. I think if you can get Mackenzie Milton, you take that shot. Huh?
He recruited the kid from Liberty to Auburn.
I know.
That kid was in Auburn originally.
But I think if you can get Mackenzie Milton, I don't think you say no. And people I talked to up in Orlando tell me he looked very, very good in practice. And the general perception is that he's going to be able to play next year. So I think you got to take a shot with a kid like that. You're not risking much. You're risking a single scholarship. You still have Tyler Van Dyke sitting there to compete, and Nkosi, I assume, comes back next year. And I just think if you can get a kid of that ability levels, and he's really healthy, it's like getting a De'Ara King 2 years in a row, because that kid was I don't know if you remember how good he was.
Oh, I remember him very well. He won about 24 games in a row.
Yep.
And he ran that quick offense. So.
Yep.
I think you're right. We should get him.
I mean, the kid's a winner. I hear nothing but positive things about that kid.
Right. And you see how Alex Smith has come back to play from a horrific injury. So, okay. All right. Let's go on to the next point here. If Jake Garcia wants to go to Florida State, let him go. And have his father order a body bag for him, because he's going to get murdered up there. Does he see what that offensive line looks like? They're losing players every day. Somebody's leaving.
Yeah, I imagine they're going to be very active in the transfer portal this year. I got to think that they're going to look to really hit the portal hard.
Okay. My last point. I know we argued about this earlier in the year. Remember you said we didn't have any elite players? We have 6 players up for national award. So obviously we have some elite
And that what we do now. We didn't when we talked about it. I mean, they hadn't played it down for Miami.
Okay, but I told you they were elite players.
We were hoping they would be, but we were hoping they would be. But you're not an elite player till you're an elite player. And I think that Rochet and Phillips have been playing elite football without question. Brevin Jordan, he's missed so much time. I mean, I want to say, he obviously can be an elite type of player, but he just it's like he's barely played. He might be leaving. He might go to the NFL, and it's like he was barely here, in my opinion. But, he's got obviously the type of skills. I think he could be like a second-round draft pick. So I expect him to probably leave. But, yeah, what you're really seeing, Greg, which is the foundation of the argument in the first place, is when you have elite players, it makes a difference. And we're winning these close games this year because we have elite older players. There's no doubt about it. Otherwise, this is a 3-4-loss football team.
Yeah, well, if Nkosi Perry was playing, we might not have. We'd have more than 4 losses.
Yeah, I'm trying to be an optimist and saying 3-4-loss team. It makes a big difference, man. And you see it all over the place. Like, on the message boards at CaneSport.com, we have all these constant arguments about Oregon and Mario Cristobal, and does he suck, does he not suck, and this and that. He doesn't suck. He lost a first-round quarterback. He lost a top 3 pick left tackle. He lost the first or second-round safety. They had, I think, 14 seniors that they lost off last year's team. So he had all these young kids that were coming in to replace. They had no spring practice, so they couldn't develop their roster. And they got caught 2 weeks in a row against bad teams where their offensive line, which is totally remade, all 5 spots, couldn't get a first down late in the fourth quarter to ice the game. And then last week they had 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter. And they lost another close game. So Like, and I'm not using that as an example. I'm talking about all over the country. This is what we're seeing. And I think that a lot of these teams are struggling because they have young players that didn't get to get proper coaching and didn't get properly developed in the off season. And, it catches up to you. And when you can have veteran players like what we've had this year that are winning games for you, like Rochet and Phillips and King, it's the difference between going, 7-4 and 10-1.
Right. Okay. By the way, can we stop making North Carolina out to be some kind of super team? They gave up 58 points to Wake Forest, okay? Their defense is Swiss cheese. It's like Louisville, okay? If we don't score at least 45, I'd be shocked.
Yep.
I mean,
I think first to 40 wins.
Gary, we lost to them last year with Jaron Williams, and we had them 4th and 17, and we let them get the first down. Okay?
I know.
They're not a great team. I'm sorry.
No, but they're better this year offensively than they were last year.
Okay, they're great. They're good offensively. They're not that good, Gary. Guaranteed.
I didn't say they are.
Brown's no savior. He's going to be 14-10 after this week. So I'm tired of hearing it. I live in North Carolina.
But they're on the upswing, Greg. They really are. They're on the upswing. They're recruiting very, very well. Well, let me see. Where are they in the recruiting rankings now? I'm going to take a quick look. I mean, they're recruiting extremely well in that Carolina area. They've kind of, they've drifted down. They're now number 15. They're below us. But in that pocket of the country, they've been recruiting exceptionally well. And really just behind us in terms of, if you look at the average star rankings, 3.56, we're at 3.6. So they are on the upswing. They're a program that's getting better. And they have a good coaching staff.
Yeah, they're playing a kid that should be in high school right now, playing corner. So you're worried about Marcus Clark playing and Dunson, and this kid should be in high school. So you saw Notre Dame went right after the kid. So I'm sure we're going to go right at him too.
I'm sure we are.
I'll give you 42-21. That's my prediction.
All right, Greg. Sounds good. I think everybody listening will take that. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for being part of the show, as always. 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go to the 305. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary. How are you this week?
Hey, what's up, Adam? How you doing this week?
Good. A couple things. One, I know you're trying to play the whole Valdosta thing with Jake Garcia, but with him being on FaceTime, well, no, just trying to play like the connection with Valdosta to Florida State. But I actually think at the end of the day, I think he's leaning towards Miami, or else why would he FaceTime with all the Miami recruits?
I agree. It just, I have seen a little hesitation, and I also question like what Matt Shodell just said, like, okay, so if you're coming to Miami, why haven't you committed? Just say I'm switching from USC to Miami and it's over. Like, so we'll see. I mean, listen, I forecast him to Miami months ago. So I've always felt he was coming to Miami. I was surprised he committed to USC, quite frankly. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I had friends play when I was in high school, do like big time basketball, and I've seen him decommit. And I can understand him just wanting to get through the playoffs before dealing with the nitty gritty of recommitting. So you could see both sides.
Yeah, except for one thing, Adam. I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into what you're saying. The playoffs in Georgia, if they keep winning, are going to go till December the 30th. Signing is next week, so he can't wait till the playoffs are over.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was the case in Georgia.
Yeah, he's planning on being an early enrollee. He's planning on being an early enrollee.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, I was just saying it from another perspective. Okay. My mistake.
No, not a problem at all. That's what we're here for, man. We're here to chop it out.
Just a few other things. I was impressed with Marcus Clark. I hadn't really heard much of him, but I saw he got the interception late. And has he been one of the surprise, freshman DBs with him and Dunson and this year? like
I
some
mean,
of those pleasant surprise freshmen?
I'm not going to say a surprise because there is nobody else. I mean, you were hoping that you've recruited well enough to where you're bringing a couple kids in that can play. I would say Dunson maybe just because of the way he fell into the class. You know how late he ended up committing, and I would say he's maybe more of a surprise than Clark. But the truth is, neither one has really been tested yet. If they get in the game this week, they'll be tested to a greater degree than they've been tested at any point during the season, and we'll see how they hold up. I don't like the matchup very much with those receivers, but hopefully they come through.
And a couple of things. One, what happened with Savion Collins? Was just that a case of just saying, you know what, we're not going to be able to take you, we're just going to cut bait? Or did
He's
Savion
overweight.
Collins say,
He's gotten big. He's overweight. He can't move. And the coaches very astutely, and I applaud them for it, made the determination that he's not going to play here and be an impact player at Miami, and we need to let him go somewhere else, and they did. And I think they saved themselves a mistake in this recruiting class, and the kind of mistake that they've made too often in the past. Too many guys have been signed that have not made impacts here.
Okay. So this wasn't, and his decommitment, similar to the Tim Burns, it won't affect the other Palmetto kids?
No. Nope.
But they're both solid, Leonard Taylor and Brashard Smith?
Yeah, they should both be solid. Barring something crazy, they should both be solid. And both are very, very, very extremely impactful football players. I think Leonard Taylor has the potential to be a superstar here. Brashard Smith, if Rhett Lashley stays, the way that he would be used, I think would be similar to the way that Mike Harley's being used right now. And I think that he, too, would be a very impactful football player here.
Okay. A couple other things. One, besides Milton, and do you see us being like a player in any other transfers, like the kid out of USC? I can't pronounce his name. The 5-star.
I have to believe when you look at the way that the transfer portal has kind of transformed the program, that transfers are going to be part of the mix. But the dilemma that Manny and coaches all over the country have right now is that for whatever reason, the NCAA has not given them guidance on what the roster number limitations are going to be like, and are there going to be adjustments, and are they going to be allowed to take more than 25 initials in a year? They have no clue. So right now, it's hard to say. In fact, sit tight for a minute. I had a chance to talk to Manny about it, and I think now would be a good time for me to play his response. So let me just play that real quick, and I'll be right back. I'll be right back to you, Adam.
Okay.
Have you gotten any clarity on what your numbers are going to be allowed to? And obviously, the transfer portal's been extremely good to Miami football the last couple of years. How active are you going to be able to, or are you going to try to be in the transfer portal in this cycle?
Well, Gary, the most astonishing thing is the first part of your question is there's still no clarity in terms of will anybody be able to go above the 25 initials for a year. And it's really actually quite sad because you are seeing all around the country all these kids jumping into the portal, and in reality there's nowhere for them to go. There's going to be more spots. There's going to be more players in the portal than spots available unless we change the way we do our scholarship accounting. When we find out what those rules are, we'll do what we do every year, which is we'll look to see if there's ways that we can improve our football team and get the right fit of the portal. You have mentioned we've had good success, but it's not just because these guys have been good players. They've also been great guys in our locker room, and they fit who we are. So you always have the opportunity to try to improve yourself if it's there. I would expect that we'll look into that, but we really like our high school class. We want to finish strong in that class. We always want to be a program that's, built with the high school talent, especially the high school talent in this area, which we're really excited about the guys we've got coming in. And, and then if you have to fill in a crack with a really talented player that's older, then that opportunity is always there.
Has the NCAA given any indication when they will tell you that? I mean, signing day is in a week and a half.
It sure is. I think in January, I think there's a vote. We've been kind of knee deep in the season, so. But there's a lot. I don't know. I don't know that the majority of the student athletes who play the sport are aware of where they're jumping into in the portal with what's available for them. So we'll see what happens. It'll be fascinating to watch. We're kind of all making it up as we go along. So we're living in real time history. We'll see how it goes.
All right, Adam. So there you have it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
You could kind of see what they're going through there with transfers.
Okay. Do you? And last thing, do you see Miami being in? Do you have any indication that there are some recruits like this kid Austin Barber out of Jacksonville who could be like those late ads in the early period that that Miami's going after?
Yeah, he's the main one. I mean, they offered him this week, which, gives him the option of coming. They wouldn't have offered him if they wouldn't take him. And, we'll see. I think he's going to be a late signing, so we'll see how that works out.
And what about Mason Smith, the kid out of Louisiana? I know we just lost Davion Collins.
That kid's the number one recruit in the country, and he's from Louisiana. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. I've been told by some sources I have that Miami probably looks at it as like they have about maybe a 30% chance. I don't think they're planning on getting Mason Smith. I think it was something they took a shot with. I think Blake Baker did a phenomenal job recruiting him. But without official visits and being able to take trips back and forth and all those things, I mean, it's asking too much. It's like somebody coming to South Florida and getting Leonard Taylor this year away from Miami. I got to think that kid ends up at LSU.
Okay. And last thing, any word on if Avonte Williams will be able to play next year? I know he had the medical condition this year, but there's no indication that it's football or.
I think the hope is that he will. I haven't heard that he won't, but I don't think that's something we can answer right this minute.
Oh, so it's similar to like the Alblade situation with the myocarditis, because again, that is a serious thing, and we.
No, I wouldn't say it's similar. Okay. The myocarditis is a internal, relatively serious situation when you're talking about inflammation of the heart and things like that. Avonte Williams, I think, was a bad shoulder that just needed to be repaired.
Okay. I didn't know if it was something more. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. Okay. I mean, my knowledge of it was a shoulder. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking my call, Gary. Have a great rest of the show.
All right, Adam. Thanks as always for being part of it. 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show. Let's go out to the 941, where I believe that's the Mikester Kane waiting. Mikester, welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you doing this evening?
Hey, great, Gary. Well, I'll tell you, getting a little rusty there, trying to get to be the first guy in the queue.
Yeah, well, I don't think Greg's made it once this year, and he used to make it first every week. So, he's probably got you covered a little bit on the frustration meter. But happy to have you on here in hour number 2. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just a couple things, and then we'll head off. You're right about Rhett, though. He's a really cool dude, man. I'm not surprised about him mentioning the Broyles Award. I think he should get it. He deserves it. He's done a great job with his offense. I'm also hearing a lot of people, bitching about the Clemson game. He shouldn't have played Clemson and yada, yada, yada. Well, I got to tell you, man, playing Clemson gives the program something to shoot for.
Absolutely.
It gives a location of where the bar stands and how far we got to go.
What's the point of having a good record if it's a chicken shit record? If it's bullshit, what's the point?
Right, exactly. We still got a long way to go. We still got a lot of work to do, especially on the recruiting trail. I mean, you gotta cut some slack there. And one other thing, do you know the condition of Jalen Knighton? How's he doing? I know he got injured.
Well, I'm pretty sure he had a concussion, and that would mean that I think that's what it was, and that would mean he'd be going through protocols this week and stuff. I would say he's highly questionable for this weekend.
Oh, okay.
But we have not haven't heard anything definitive.
Well, and looking into next year, let's say the situation turns out where we don't get Mackenzie, King leaves. Who do you think would step up? Do you think Van Dyke would step up if that situation were to occur, or Perry, or
Adam? Usually, I mean, Mikester. Usually, I would be able to give you like a really good answer on this because I would have watched hours of Tyler Van Dyke throwing footballs in practice. But we have not been able to watch practice this year because of coronavirus. So I can't really answer that. I haven't seen Tyler Van Dyke do a single thing. We're at the mercy of, Rhett Lashley and Manny saying everything's great when we ask about it. But, when have you ever heard a coach come on a media call and say anything bad about one of their players? We don't have anything to go by. We'll do some digging. We'll try to get to the bottom of it a little bit more.
I tried, but I had no success either. So.
Yeah, we'll put a little more effort into it. I'm not going to tell you we've put a ton of effort into that one to this point. There's kind of been other fish to fry, but we'll try to figure out a little bit more about where he stands. But I mean, looking at it, common sensibly, the best thing for this program, if you can get a Mackenzie Milton level quarterback, a De'Ara King level quarterback, you absolutely are going to do that over throwing a freshman out there on the field who's never played before, who hasn't even gotten mop up time, who didn't have a spring practice this year. I mean, may or may not have a spring practice next year. I think they got to look in the portal for a veteran guy. And if Tyler Van Dyke comes into practices and is better than that guy, then you let the chips fall where they may, and you put him out there. I mean, I hate to mention that O word again, but I can use Oregon as an example here. They took the kid Anthony Brown from Boston College and took him as a transfer. Well, when they put him in competition with Tyler Show, they decided Tyler Show's better, and Brown hasn't seen the field this year. Now, I expect and think they should go into the portal. I think Mackenzie Milton has to be the number one choice if you could take a shot with that kid.
Oh, yeah. Did you see the injury that he sustained in
that
it
was
one
horrific.
game? Oh, my
God. It was terrible. But he's had 2 years to rehab. They thought he might have to have an amputation. When that happened and they took him to the hospital, they thought he might have to have an amputation. They immediately sent him into surgery. They were able to fix the leg, and now he's had 2 years to rehab. It's been just a gruesome rehab. But from what I thought, he returned to practice and was running the scout team. And I'm told by people I talked to up there that he looked phenomenal and that he's ready to go. And they can't speak highly enough of the kid. They wanted him to stay at UCF and compete with their other kid. I mean, I don't know why. That would have been a total disaster for whoever lost that competition. But I hear he's ready to compete and ready to go. So if I were Rhett Lashley and Manny Diaz, I'd be all in on that one.
And you said King was talking to him?
I heard they had a conversation, and I think the conversation was along the lines of Miami being interested in recruiting him and him being willing to consider Miami, but not wanting to come here if De'Ara King were going to stay. And from what I was told, they had a conversation, and De'Ara King told him that he was not staying, that he was gonna be leaving at the end of the year, and that has inspired Mackenzie Milton to now consider Miami. Is he going to pick Miami? I don't know, but he's considering it.
Well, let's hope he picks, right? Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, you got that kid. I don't know how much you got to watch him or remember him or whatever. That kid was as good as any quarterback. I mean, he was so good, and they just didn't lose with him.
Oh yeah. Well, my brother, my nephew goes to that school, so I've been able to watch him, and he was phenomenal. He's a phenomenal kid, so I hope
he's a winner. And anybody who has any doubts or doesn't really know, just go over to YouTube and type in Mackenzie Milton and just watch a little bit of tape on him, and you'll see what we're talking about. He's a player.
Well, I've watched the games, so I already know. Man, we get this kid. we got it made, hopefully.
Yeah.
And, get that offensive line improved, right?
Yeah.
Avonte being back, well, how is he doing anyway? I mean, from your perspective.
Navon?
Yeah.
Considering he's totally out of shape and hasn't played a lot of football lately, and I thought he did pretty well when he went in the other day. But, I mean, he's blocking dummies. Like, come on. Like, Duke wasn't out there playing hard. They were going through the motions. We'll get a better idea if he gets in the game this week.
All right, Gary. Well, I'm going to let you get some other callers on the line there. It's great talking to you, and we'll see you next week, all right?
All right, Mikester. Thank you as always. 563-999-3550, 563-999-3550. You want to come on the show, you hit the 1 on your keypad when you dial through. Let's see. Let's go now to the 706, where I believe this is Sebastian is now live on CaneSport Live. How you doing? How you doing tonight, Sebastian?
Hey, pretty good, Gary. You getting good, man. I'm trying.
I am, aren't they?
I'm trying to get to that number 1 spot too, man. But I got a lot of work to do.
Well, you know what? I just want you guys to know that you guys are special, and I know who's calling, and so I try to remember whose name is attached to each call. So.
No,
whether you're first or fifth or sixth or whatever you are, you're always welcome, and we're always happy to hear from you. So what's on your mind this week?
No, so just a couple of things. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to ask you for a favor. This year, Manny's been coached for 2 years now, but he's been in the program I think 4 or 5 years. But one thing Manny has done is he's really, really kind of identified players that he's acquired from the transfer portal that may have been kind of like suspect in relations to maybe they had some character flaws or they had like some medical issues or something like that. But for the most part, he's pretty much struck gold on many of them. And so the next time you get a chance to talk to him, I mean, I'd be interested in just kind of hearing his insight in relations to, how did he kind of get to that standpoint for the most, because we as Canes fans, we have to admit that him bringing these kids and transferring into our program has really given us a level of success. And for all the grief that he takes, for the program and stuff like that, I think that is an area where he's really won. And so whether it's Jaden Phillips with, the concussion issues or, Bubba Baldwin with the character issues or the Trayvon Hill from Virginia Tech that got kind of kicked off, many of these kids that have kind of come into our program has not been headaches for us is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so I'd be interested in, because I believe other kids would consider Miami to transfer to because for the most part, they've been able to kind of get their careers back on track. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I
agree with you. I think you got a track record now of helping guys get their career back on track, and I think it's going to help you recruit guys down the road. The only thing is, though, and I think Manny knows this, is it's very hard to build a program like this. And, to where every year you're under that kind of pressure to hit as big as they've hit this year in the transfer portal. So I think you're seeing a little bit more focus on the traditional route this year, and it doesn't mean they're not going to take a few transfers. And I think there's going to be a lot of transfers looking for new homes, but I think that they're trying to go back in the other direction and build the program the proper way, where you develop young players and you have them for a few years. But it's worked. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think the biggest reason is because of the need that existed, because, we didn't have a quarterback in the program like the Eric King. We needed some more depth at defensive end, and the Quincy Rochet signing turns out to be genius when you look at the fact that Greg Rousseau left. Well, when they took Quincy Rochet, they didn't know Greg Rousseau was going pro. The coronavirus hadn't hit yet. So it's just the stars. Sometimes, after last year where everything went wrong, I would say that Miami was due for a year where everything went right, and we've gotten it.
Yeah, I agree with lots of what you said, Gary. But I'm thinking about, I don't know if you get a Quincy Rochet if you don't get a Trayvon Hill the year before. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In other words, the model is there in relations to, you know what? Look, if your talent program that'll welcome you with open arms, where you can get coached up and you can continue on this trajectory, if it is to get to the league, to be able to go ahead and do that. I think about Manny's first transfer. I can't think of his name. The guy, the safety from Texas that we converted to a cornerback, but he made it to the league. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of stories that I've seen that, over the 5 years Manny's been into the program. He has a track record where, players transfer into his program that are questionable in so many or deficient in some areas, and they kind of get their careers back on track and they get a chance to go on to their goals. So I'm just interested in, you have an opportunity to kind of ask him a question like that or whatnot. I'm just kind of curious, interested in what he might say. The next thing I want to talk about is, do you feel that if Jake Garcia, I really want him in the program, but, that was like my premier recruit. But if we get a Jake Garcia, do we still take a Mackenzie Milton still?
I would. I absolutely would, because I don't feel that Jake Garcia is coming in and starting next year. Like that, I don't know that that's reality. And if you can get a veteran guy like Mackenzie Milton, who, if he stays healthy, can be a elite quarterback for you next year, you have to take him. So I personally would take both of them. We can't ask Manny that question because he's not allowed to talk about that stuff. But I absolutely would take both of them, and I think they would.
Okay. Well, that kind of answered my question. You gave me a lot of insight on the recruitment of Jake Garcia, and I tell you, that's probably, I don't know how about the other Cane Nation's going to feel. If he ends up at Florida State, man, that is going to sour me big time because, to me, he's the kind of quarterback you want to be bringing in your program year after year. If you want to be on that field competing with Clemson, that's the kind of stable folks you need to have. You need to have an offensive coordinator that can work with him for a year or two to kind of get him to where he needs to be. I guess the next point or thing I want you to talk about, Gary, I want to get some insight on it is, if we, take care of North Carolina, which I think is going to be a very, very tough game, and we get on the field with Florida in the Orange Bowl, what are your thoughts? What kind of what do you think we stand to gain if we're able to beat an SEC Florida team in the Orange Bowl?
Oh, everything. Florida, SEC team, Orange Bowl. You really don't need to say more. We stand to gain so much if it played out that way. But, I think the Gators can be had. I really do. I think they're a very good team, obviously. But I'm not like totally overwhelmed by them. I don't think it's a situation where we wouldn't be very competitive with them, and I think it would be a decent football game.
I look at the game last year and I say I think the difference in the game is quarterback play. That's
but we have a quarterback now too, and they've got a new quarterback who's might win the Heisman Trophy, and the kid's unbelievable, and I think he would carve us up a little bit. But I don't walk away thinking that we wouldn't be able to move the ball on them too. Their defense is good. I don't think it's off the charts great.
The last two questions that I have, and you can just put me on hold, is number one is, what do you think? I like my Rump, but when I saw that kid Clark make that interception, it's like, man, I'm like, what took so long for him to get on the field? I've been hearing all the stories about how he's a ball hawk and he's making all these interceptions in practice and stuff, but when I rewatched that thing several times, when I watched that Duke game, how he broke on that ball, and I'm sitting up here just saying. So I can't understand the struggle that we have recruiting cornerbacks at Miami. You must know something that we don't know. I can't for the life of me understand why we struggle to recruit cornerbacks to our program. I just think there's at least 15 cornerbacks every single week. There's at least 15 D1 cornerbacks in the state of Florida. And why do we struggle every year to recruit them?
I don't, it's hard to explain. Like, we've had some perceived elite corners down here that we've missed out on, and I don't think we've struggled any more at cornerback than we have struggled everywhere else. Like, haven't recruited great at most positions. I mean, we haven't recruited great at quarterback. We haven't recruited great on the offensive line. So at receiver. I mean, obviously we've done pretty well at tight end and running back. We've got good running backs. I'm not sure we have a great back. I mean, do you see Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like what I see from Don Chaney, in moving forward and everything, but like, I'm not sure any of those guys are at the elite, McGahee, Portis, Edgerrin James type level as backs, but we've recruited well there. I think you would feel pretty good about where the running back position is. I don't think we've recruited great at defensive tackle. Obviously, we've done a really good job at defensive end. We have not done a very good job at linebacker. We've done okay in the secondary, like you're talking about. But I just think it's recruiting overall. I know people like to jump all over Mike Rumpf. I mean, I don't look at it as, oh my God, we just have this singular problem at the cornerback position. I mean, I think we can recruit better just about everywhere. And I think we need to if we want to really get Miami back to where everybody wants to see it be.
Man, I don't know. I mean, seeing the talent that kid, or the potential that he showed and displayed. And
yeah, but he's showing it to you against Duke. Okay, and Duke, a Duke team that's not good at all this year, that is not into the game at all. So, and I know he made that great individual play. That doesn't mean he's ready to be out there for 40, 50 snaps against a good team. And that's what I think you have to understand. And, the coaches are watching these kids every day in practice. They're going against our offense, which is pretty good. And they're getting to see them in the heat of the battle, and they're the ones that are equipped to make those judgments. I mean, we're not sitting out here and especially this year where we don't get to watch practice. I mean, when we could watch practice, we can make better judgments and we could relay them to you. But Mike Rumpf and Blake Baker and Manny Diaz, they're watching every single rep that every kid takes, and they're watching it over and over and over again on film. And they get a pretty good feel for who's at what state of their development. And you got to remember, this kid's a freshman who didn't have a spring practice. So you're going to throw him out there to decide football games for you, or are you going to play Al Blades and DJ Ivy? Now, Corey Couch has earned his way. He's earned his way out there, and they made the decision to start putting him out there, and he looks pretty good, right?
He does. He looks real good. You got to answer a question for me, then you can put me on hold before I go. If the season goes like we're supposed to, we win our next two games, how likely will we have some of our, draft-eligible players opt out and not play in the bowl game? What are your thoughts on that? Is that just something we just won't know, or do you think a lot of these guys will still end up playing in the bowl game? And because that's my concern. My concern is
I agree.
We beat North Carolina. That's my concern.
I agree with it. I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's legitimate. It's a legitimate concern, and I can't tell you what these kids would do. I mean, I would think they would play, because playing against Florida and having a good game against Florida is going to allow you to get drafted higher. So I don't feel that any of their draft positions are so set in stone and so favorable to where they would opt out of the game. So, I mean, if I were their agent, I would say, Jalen Phillips, Quincy Rochet, play against Florida and go frickin' have the most killer game of your life. Because, see, here's the thing. NFL scouts, when they do their homework, you think they're watching a 40-point blowout victory over Duke? They're not even turning that. They won't even turn that game on, Sebastian. They will not even turn it on. They want to watch these guys in the tough games against good competition. And we have not had a lot of those this year. We've played a lot of average teams. And, Jalen Phillips, we know you can get 3 sacks against Duke. Let's see what you can do against Florida. And if he goes out there and he beats up Florida, instead of maybe being the 45th pick in the draft or whatever, maybe he becomes the 35th pick in the draft. And you know what? If he can do that because he played against Florida, he's just made himself an extra few $1 million. And it's worth it. So, It's not
Got
like
it.
a guy that's like a guaranteed first-round pick or like none of these are. Like these guys are still fighting for their draft positions and their evaluations. So if I had to make a guess to answer your question, it would be that they would play.
Yeah, I got it. Hey, Gary, man, great show. I learned a lot. I will say you're probably, Pro Football has how we grade, the players. I've graded you, and, man, I'm telling you, you scored. You've done pretty well this year, so I want to let you know about that. Let's just bring Jake Garcia home, man. I just really want him in the program, man.
Well,
I really want.
I'm going to give you a little scoop here because I've been doing some digging on it and just got a little tidbit that I'm getting ready to post on the message boards. But I'll go ahead and talk about it on the show here too. I've just confirmed that Florida State has been in daily contact with Jake Garcia as well as Miami, and Miami's been on him longer. Going back months and years. Longer than Florida State, which is, just been basically in touch with him, I guess, the last few months. But they have been talking with him daily. They are pushing extremely hard, just like Miami is. My sources up in Tallahassee tell me that, similar to what we've been talking about here, that there's nothing that seems clear-cut with that kid. No decisions or anything like that, no slam dunks anywhere. But the fact that they're talking to him every day does confirm what I said earlier tonight, that they feel that they are in that mix. And he's probably going to pick between Miami and Florida State. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Appreciate it. All
right, Sebastian.
Thanks, Gary. Man. Good show, man.
Yep. Thank you, as always, for being part of it. Let's go to the 727. You are live on CaneSport Live, and I believe this is our man, Jake. Jake, welcome back. How you doing this evening? Yep. I'm doing good tonight, man. I've hit every single one tonight. So what do you got for us? What's going on?
Yeah, so this week I wanted to, somebody put it up on the message board, but I didn't hear anyone say anything about it tonight so far, so I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts with Baldwin and Brevin Jordan really pining for that kid from USC? Would that indicate to you think they're coming back?
No. No, I would not put two and two together.
Okay, no, fair
No, I would not. But I will say this: I think Baldwin has had two up and down of a season. I think he needs to come back. So I think there's a decent chance that he will come back. Brevin Jordan, I got to think, is looking to go to the National Football League. I would be surprised if he came back. I think he's got a lot to gain by coming back because he hasn't played a lot of football, but he does have it. He's got unique skills, and he will get drafted. And it won't be in the first round; it'll be in the second round probably. I would think.
No, he's probably a third or fourth round pick.
No, because I don't think so. I think he's probably a second round pick. They really like him at the next level, and when he makes his inquiries, he's going to get very favorable feedback, I think. So I'd be surprised if he comes back. I would be surprised if Baldwin goes.
Yeah, no, he's got a lot to prove, and he's a big safety. He could, another good season. I mean, not this year's been real up and down, but he puts it all together next year. That could, that could definitely earn him some money. With that said, what do you think? So I agree with you that King's probably out the door, but let me throw some, and I don't want this to happen. I'm going to be in the stands on Saturday. I can't wait. I'll be roaring for the Canes. But do you think if King does not perform well on Saturday and or in the bowl game, that might give him something to come back and prove? Because it's one thing. He's beat the crap out of mediocre competition. There's no doubt about it. But the couple of good defenses he's seen, Virginia and Clemson, so-so. It's some good, a lot of bad. Come back and show you can do it against Bama. Come back and show you can do it, on a big stage next year. They return some guys. Prove you can do it again. Do it on a bigger stage.
Yeah, but he's
I've
really
been preaching
proven.
this all year. I don't know. I think because you look with like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, I think the stigma against a short quarterback is not necessarily, even Baker Mayfield. He's what, 5'11". He's not a big guy. There's some guys getting it done in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I don't think
against.
Yeah, I don't think he's at that level of a Kyler Murray, but I do think that he could have some appeal to some people, and he'll be a 5th round pick, something like that. But whether he goes out this year or next year, he's still he's still going to be at the same status a year from now. So to me, it makes no sense that he would come back. And we, like I said earlier, the feedback we've gotten is we're hearing that he's could change.
Out. Yeah,
it could change, but it makes sense for him to leave, I think. I don't think it makes sense for Bubba Baldwin to leave.
Jared Williams too. I'd say he probably leaves. I don't know how much more he gains.
Yeah, he definitely leaves.
Gone?
Yeah, he's got nothing. He's got nothing to gain here.
So shifting to the transfer portal, do you think? I mean, I've probably said this before, but there's something that tells me that Manny's getting ahead of the curve with the transfer portal, because I just, if they vote on this one-time transfer rule, that can make transfers just as important as recruits. I mean, because in essence, anyone can leave at any time. So that becomes college recruiting in essence.
Yeah. But you got to have scholarships, and the NCAA hasn't told them how many initials they're going to be able to have.
Oh, it's so messed up how they've gone about it, because teams need to be ready to adjust and adapt. But I think that actually could work very well. I mean, you look at what's going on with Nebraska with all these South Florida kids, and look, Nebraska's a program too. It's a mediocre school, and they toss all their money at football. You can wow all these kids and everything, but at the end of the day, you see a lot of these transfers and guys coming with something to prove. Miami, to me, for a kid who wants to go and make some money in the NFL or play his way back into making the NFL, Miami's got huge appeal. You have a lot of pro training facilities down there, so you have a big season. You're right there where you need to be for getting ready for the NFL draft or the combine and all that. I could really see. I'm not saying we should be taking 10 transfers a year, but do we take the 20 best we can get? Hopefully, broaden outside of South Florida, and maybe 4 or 5 guys in the transfer portal like we've done the last couple of years to bolster deficiencies in the lineup while some of the young guys mature. I don't know. I think, Miami has a lot of appeal to upperclassmen, it seems. And it's absolute malpractice that the NCAA has not given clarity on this to this point. I mean, it really is. And they're not going to until 2 weeks before the actual signing day?
I don't know. I mean, signing day is a week from now, and teams
January.
are giving out their scholarships. So, I don't know it makes no sense.
Yeah, they're gonna screw over a lot of kids, I think, with the way they're doing this. But we'll see. Anyway, that's all
right, Jake.
I got going for you. But I'll be in the stands and hoping for a big win. I don't know. I think we're gonna take it to them. I think we're going to win by 2-3 touchdowns.
All right, man, that would be nice. I think everybody
motivated.
I think everybody would take that. We'll talk to you about it next week.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you then.
All right, Jake. Thanks for being part of the show. Let's go to the 917, where I believe this one is BK Hurricane. What's up, my man?
What's up?
How you doing this week?
What's up? What's up, Gary? What's going on, man? How's everything?
Doing good. What you got?
Gary, I wanted to run a hypothetical past you real quick, right? If you look at the college football playoff standings came out, 1 through 10. What do you think is the separation between teams 7 through 10?
I don't understand. All right, the 1 through 6 make total. 1 through 6 makes total sense to me. I think they got it right. I don't know
Right.
what's going to happen with Ohio State because they've only played 5 games. And
4 games.
No, they're 5-0 now.
I thought they were 4-0. Okay, that's right.
No, they're 5-0. But Michigan bowed out on them this week. They're not going to get to play. They're still going to be sitting there with 5 wins. They're not going to get to play in the Big Ten title game, most likely. And then what will happen is the Big Ten is going to try to get them a game against probably Iowa just to get them the 6 victories so that they can make to get into the playoff. I don't see how you put them in the playoff even at 6-0 over Texas A&M or well, I mean, actually, only one of between Alabama, Texas A&M, and Florida, I'm pretty sure there's only going to be one team in the playoff unless Notre Dame beats Clemson. A 9-2 Clemson's not going to make it in. So at that point, you might get a second. You might get a second SEC team in. So, we'll see what happens. I don't see how they could put Ohio State in this thing this year. I know it sucks for those kids. Ohio State would make a very legit argument that they're getting screwed, but I don't see how you put a 5-6 win team that doesn't have really a signature victory into the national championship playoff. Like when you have other teams that deserve consideration. Now, so once you get past number 6 Florida, they've got Iowa State at number 7, and this is what gets me scratching my head. Okay, how do you put Iowa State at 8-2 at number 7 over an undefeated Cincinnati, over an 8-1 Miami, over even a 6-2 Georgia? I don't see how you do that. I don't see how you make that decision. But they're high on Iowa State for whatever reason.
Gary, this is where it gets crazy. Florida beats Alabama. Do both Florida and Alabama get in?
Absolutely.
Okay. Florida beats Alabama.
If Florida beats Alabama, Ohio State is out. Okay.
Listen to this, though. It gets even weirder. Florida beats Alabama. Notre Dame beats Clemson again. Who gets in? It's not Texas A&M because there's no way.
I think Alabama would be in. I think Florida would be in that case. Notre Dame would obviously be in, and I think the fourth spot. It wouldn't be Clemson. I don't think it would be Ohio State. It would probably be Texas A&M.
Do you think that the committee is going to put 3? Now, this is where I have a problem. Do you think the committee is going to say, let's put in 3 SEC teams?
Well, that's a good that's a damn good question. But
this is where it gets weird, Gary. It gets weirder.
Yeah, and if they have a problem with that, if they have a problem with that, do they then go and elevate an undefeated Cincinnati
or a Miami team if they go undefeated?
No, they don't. They don't. You could tell that the writing's on the wall. They don't think much of Miami.
No, I know that, but if you look, this is a weird season, Gary. If you're looking at pure
record, I don't see us jumping under any circumstance from 10-4. I don't.
No. That's not what you're looking at. Iowa State, who they play? They're going to play Oklahoma. They're gone. They're done.
Right.
Okay. I'm just doing the math. Cincinnati. It will come down to between us and Cincinnati. Think that given the choice between us.
Well, you're assuming that they wouldn't take the third SEC team.
I know, but this is just assuming that they don't.
I wouldn't assume anything.
No, I mean, like you said, it could be a big debate. I can't see 3 SEC teams making the playoffs, even though the SEC will push like all hell to get a third SEC team in there.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a matter of push. It's a matter of what they think, what the committee thinks, and I mean, they all you could do is look at their rankings, BK. You just look at their rankings. I mean, you move a team out, you move them up a slot. But here's the question. No, seriously, here's the question. Do they take a 6-0 Ohio State over a third SEC team?
No. Well,
that's the decision.
That's the decision. But if Ohio State finds a way.
Well, they're going to find a way to get to 6-0 because the Big Ten's going to figure out. So the Big Ten obviously wants them in, and they're going to get them to 6-0. They're going to find somebody to play them. They're going to play a game on the 19th opposite the Big Ten championship game. They want to get Ohio State to 6-0.
Unless that game gets canceled due to COVID. Then Ohio and listen, this is COVID. Ohio State is stuck. I'm just saying. This is all I'm saying. I'm just saying, me personally, this is me personally. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. This is what I wish to happen. I think if it comes down to how I just explained it, the committee's going to have one hell of a time saying.
I don't see them elevating us over Cincinnati, and elevating us over Texas A&M.
Okay, now if Cincinnati loses, they have a championship game to play. They could lose. Iowa State could lose. They have a championship game to play. And who does that leave? If we beat UNC convincingly.
At that point, you might see them take a 9-2. They would take a 9-2 Clemson over a 10-1 Miami.
Right. But then at least we may even be considered.
We're not getting into the college football playoff. Let's focus on the Orange Bowl. It's Orange Bowl or bust right now.
I have no idea who we would play at the Orange Bowl at this point.
Well, I think we would play one of these SEC teams that's not in the playoff.
Not if all three of them gets in. That's the thing. If Notre Dame's going to mess up the whole thing.
Yeah, but listen. Let's not. We could do this for an hour, BK. We could do this for an hour right now. Let's let it go for now. Too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna let it go.
Way too many variables that we don't have to have figured out today. 2 weeks from now, yeah.
That's all. I was just being a homer. That's all.
I know, but it's not happening. So what else you got?
All right, real quick. This Jake Garcia thing, right? Personally, if I'm Miami at this point, I'm looking at other options.
Well, they
it
are.
Sounds like,
I'm sure they are.
Well, I mean, seriously considering other options. I'm giving Jake Garcia and his family an ultimatum. If there's no signature by December 16th, we're moving on. You could forget
BK,
you go to Florida.
Yeah, and that is probably how it'll play out. But right now, why would you give him an ultimatum? If you've got Mackenzie Milton over here on one side, and you're fishing around there to see if you can get Mackenzie Milton, and you don't want to lie to Jake Garcia, you're not looking to necessarily accelerate the decision-making process. Remember, this kid just decommitted 4 days ago. Like, whatever their plans were at quarterback have been in full force all along, looking at transfers and things like that. So I don't think there's pressure on the situation right now. I think there's going to be quarterbacks in the portal. I think you still got Tyler Van Dyke sitting here. I think that you're the front runner for Jake Garcia, and I think it'll play out over the next 8 to 10 days.
All right, well, let's look at it this way. If they pursue Mackenzie Milton, they have him for 2 years. They're going to get 2 good years out of him, right? You get him for 2 good years. This year doesn't count. He goes back to being a junior all over again. So he'll have his junior year and his senior year. So they'll have 2 good years. I think that puts them in a position to make ultimatums. Because even if you miss out on a Jake Garcia this year.
But BK, you're not going to – your decision on Mackenzie Milton is not impacted at all by Jake Garcia. Like, you'll take them both. Like, I can't imagine they would turn down either one of those kids.
No, they're not turning down either one of those kids. But if one kid, specifically Jake Garcia, and this is a problem that's been plaguing Miami for years, these kids playing games with Miami. I know the father's saying all the right things. Oh, yeah, just like Romello Heights said all the right things last year and ended up screwing us in the 13th hour. The father's saying all the right things about Jake Garcia. But if he's blatantly flirting with a team that he's never, ever even been to, unless he sees a highly likelihood of a probability of him starting year one, just let him go. Because there's no way he's starting
But BK, he has a better chance to start at Florida State year one than he does Miami. That's the first thing I'll tell you.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
So if he chooses to go in that direction, I don't think you can knock him.
No, nobody's knocking him.
I mean, we want him to come. We all want him to come to Miami because we want more players and we want more competition and everything else. And he might not be better than Tyler Van Dyke. We don't know how that's going to play out. But if you're him and you're sitting there weighing your options, I don't think we could be naive here and suggest that Florida State is not a live option for him. I mean, they are looking for a quarterback. He would have a chance to start as a true freshman.
No one is naive about Florida State. I think Florida State gives him better value than we do.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He could go to Florida. Yeah, and if I'm the coach of Miami, I understand this, that Florida State is going to give him better value than we can. So we need to seriously decide, listen, we have to have signatures December 16th, and we want guarantees.
Okay, but BK, I think you're putting a stress on the situation that just doesn't need to be there. It's not that like this kid wasn't even on the radar 4 days ago, other than they were trying to flip him, because he was going to USC.
Right, and either way, we were getting a transfer quarterback anyway. So
correct.
Let's just assume that we don't get him anyway, and now we could have the opportunity to pick up the best available player, and it may be of another position of need, especially if we get a great quarterback in a transfer portal, because there's going to be a ton of them.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident that Miami's not blowing any players over what Jake Garcia is doing or not doing. And I also feel pretty confident that the dialogue that's going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to is probably a little more detailed than what we're discussing here right now.
Right. So if you had to rate it, what's the probability of him ending up in this class? Would you say 50-50, 70-30?
I would say 70-30.
70-30 that he ends up in the class?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to put a percentage on it, but I wouldn't be shocked in the least if the 30 won over and he went to Florida State.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Is looking better than I expected them to look in this situation.
Yeah, and like I just said a few minutes ago, I have confirmed that they're speaking to him on a daily basis. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
All right, BK, anything else for us?
All right, Gary, thanks a lot. No, that's it.
All right, man. All right, we'll talk to you next week. Let's go out to the 239. You're live on CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight? 239, you with us? Going once. Going twice. All right. Next time, let's go to the 786. You are live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary. What's up, buddy?
Doing great. Who's this?
Oh, this is Flex, long-time listener.
What's up, Flex?
Subscriber.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Thanks. Oh, good. Hey, Gary. Just wanted to. I've been trying to get in, but I've been calling a little late the last few shows you've had. Wanted to comment on the on the comments you were making about Miami not having good talent or talent that was good enough that we should be winning a lot more than what we have been winning. And I just took a look at
before this year, right? You're talking about before this season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even before this year.
Yeah, I'm with. Well, before we saw you're talking about before we saw what kind of players that Quincy Rochet and Jalen Phillips.
No. I'm not talking about this year, Gary. Just exclude this year.
All right, go ahead.
Because the players this year haven't went to the NFL yet. But do you know that Miami, for the last even after all of those great years, because Frank Gore is the last lineage of that, and he's in his 17th year. Do you know that we still have the 7th most players on active NFL rosters of any college football program in the country? We are still number 7. We've never dropped below number 8. We've never been below number 8. So what that tells you and me and everyone else listening is that it's never been, which I hate when you always say this, it's never been about players. And I always hear you harp about, we don't have the players, we don't have the personnel.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with that.
But how can you dispute it, Gary, when we have the 7th most players on active rosters in the NFL and we've never been below 8? How can you dispute that? At the very least, if we don't win national championships, we should be 10-win seasons every year, according to the NFL people, because they keep drafting our players and keeping them on their rosters.
All right, Flex.
So what gives?
Take a look at this season, okay? You see the season we're having. We're 8-1 going into the Carolina game. It's been a great. Wait, time out, man. Time out. It's been a great season, right? I mean, we haven't had a season. We going back now. You'd have to go back to 2017 when we were in a similar spot, except we were undefeated that year at this point. But My point is this.
Uh-huh.
Look at the players that are making this happen this year. You get the guys that are mostly responsible for this record in this season are De'Ara King, Quincy Rochet, Jalen Phillips, and Jose Borregales. Okay? 4 guys that came here as transfers who will be in the National Football League. They are going to add to your statistic. Okay? We haven't had this type of impact talent in a while. Okay, we haven't had a quarterback like De'Ara King. We haven't had a quarterback like De'Ara King flex since Ken Dorsey. Okay,
Jerry, I specifically told you not to count this season, bro. I'm talking.
No, I understand your point, but I'm trying to show you something. These are different level guys. Like these guys aren't like these guys aren't on the practice squad.
Jerry,
Gary.
This season is irrelevant.
Look, if you're asking me my opinion, I'm going to tell you these guys are different cats. These guys are different. They're different level dudes than what you're talking about. I'm not talking about.
I don't think you're listening to what I'm trying to say, Gary. What I'm asking you, what I'm asking you to address. I'm not talking about Quincy Rochet and Jalen Phillips and De'Ara King. I understand at different levels.
All right, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about those guys can't be counted because they're not in the NFL. I'm talking
okay,
about
give me names of who you're talking about. Give me the names of who you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about right now today. If you right now put in your Google search right now on your phone or your computer, wherever you're sitting, and put most players in NFL college programs, Miami will be number 7. So that tells you that years like 1 year ago, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, over the years, Miami has had a lot of talent. And it goes contrary to what you always harp on when you come on here for the last few years. I've been listening to you. I have been listening to you since the show started. I've been a subscriber, whole nine. That you've been harping about. We don't have talent. We need more players. We need more this. It's not that. It's always been the coaches. That's what I'm saying. You keep talking about this year and Quincy Rochet and Phillips. I understand that those guys are elite, and we haven't had those type of guys. I get that. But those guys have nothing to do with what I'm telling you right now because they're not in the NFL yet. So I don't know why you're bringing them up. I'm saying last year you told us that we didn't have players. The year before that you told us that we didn't have talent. But the NFL says we do because we keep having more players on active rosters than 90% of all other college programs in the country. But we're not winning like that, which tells me, and it should tell you because you're a smart guy, that it's the coaches.
All right.
Am I wrong?
You're in the middle. You're in the middle, Flex. And if you'll hear me out for about 30 more seconds, I'll explain to you why you're in the middle. Okay. Number one, like if you're talking about elite players, we have not had a lot of them. That's number one. Now we have 30 active players in the National Football League, and you're right. That comes in at number 8.
It's 34. It's 34.
Yeah, but the difference between number 8 and like number 15, I'm just looking at the list right now, is minuscule. You're talking about one player. Okay, so like Florida State's as down as can be. They have 28 Flex. Okay, we have 30. Okay, all right. Then you've got. Let's see. Let me answer your question, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 teams that are right on our heels. Okay, that have almost as many players as we have active in the league. Okay, that's number one. Okay. So having 30 players, like most of the top 15, 20 programs in the country have around 30 players. Now, who's been winning in college football?
That's not true.
Flex, let me answer your question. Wait a minute. Okay, who's been winning in college football? Alabama, right? They have 56 active players. They have 56 active players in the National Football League, almost double the number we have. Ohio State's been winning, right? They have 50 of them. Okay. LSU just won the national championship last year. Wait a minute. LSU just won the national championship. They have 41. Okay. Florida has 39. We are down near the pack. We have 30. like I just told you, there's like 12 teams within a player or two of our 30. So I understand what you're saying, and understand that encompasses all NFL rosters. It encompasses practice squads and everything. It's not talking about where guys are drafted and this and that. Okay, it's making an NFL roster or being on a practice squad. So we have not come close to matching up with the top teams in college football, and that's the point I've been making.
I never said, listen, and you're right. We haven't matched up with Alabama and the other couple teams. But if you look at where we are at, right? Look at the 30 people that we have, or we have 30 players on active rosters, right? Look at the other teams or the other programs that have 30. And Miami has not won nearly as much as those other programs, not even close. You have to be a top 15. You have to be at least a top 15 program over the last 10 years.
All right, so let's talk about that for a minute.
And we're not.
Let's talk about that. Wait, 1 second, Flex. Let's talk about that for a minute. All right, so you're correct. You're right. Like you can look at Clemson, for example, which has about the same number as we have. And now Clemson has an elite. They have an elite coaching staff, Flex, and you're absolutely right. So Clemson can take similar talent. They could take similar talent, which I don't think it's really similar talent. I think they've been much deeper than us for several years now. But in terms of pro players, they're similar to us, but they have coaches who are taking that talent and doing more with it. So your point, as it pertains to a school like Clemson, is 100% spot on. It would apply to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma, you could say the same thing.
There you go. Yeah. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
I don't know that there's a lot of them. I mean, Texas A&M just went through a coaching change, Flex. Texas A&M just went through its coaching change. Washington's hit or miss. Stanford's hit or miss. All these teams that are in the same general ballpark. Flex, I'm trying to answer your question, bro. Flex, I'm trying to answer your question. I'm giving you the pluses and minuses of what you're saying. It applies to Clemson. It applies to Oklahoma. But what you're saying does not apply to programs like Florida State, Washington, Stanford, Texas A&M, which just went through a coaching change, Auburn, which is kind of floundering around, Texas, which has been floundering around, UCLA, which has been floundering around. It doesn't apply to those. It does apply to a couple like Clemson and Oklahoma. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I think you are still minimizing the effect of how bad our coaching has been, because even when you say it's only one or two programs, I can rattle off a list of programs that have always had less talent than we've had, according to the NFL, and we have been a far worse program than they have been over the last 10 years. I'm not talking about just a caption of 1 or 2 years. I'm talking about a duration of time. We have been missing on coaches, and then we have been missing on coach after coach. But let me move on to my last point. There was a caller that called in and asked you about that player Marcus Clark. Why wasn't he playing? And that the coaches don't know what they're doing. And you argued with him and told him that, hey, Manny and Blake, look at these players.
Yeah, I think they do know what they're doing.
Hold on. Last year, the same Manny and Blake looked at Gregory Rousseau for 6 games and let Scott Patchen start over him. And it took them 6 games when everybody else was screaming. And as a matter of fact, I think there might have been a show. There was a few shows, as a matter of fact, that I listened to of yours that callers were calling in asking you the same question. Gary, why isn't Rousseau starting? As a matter of fact, I think it was Greg. Why isn't Rousseau starting? And you said the same thing. Hey, Blake and Manny are watching these guys every day. They know what they're doing. No, the hell they don't. I'll give you another example. That kid.
I half agree with you on this one too. I don't think Rousseau was totally healthy till like the 4th or 5th week. He wasn't 100%.
How did he lead the team in sacks through 6 games if he wasn't healthy?
Because he built up the stats in the end of the season.
No. Before he became a starter, he was already leading the team in sacks, which prompted him to be a starter. If he was so injured, that's BS. Here, I'll give you another example.
I didn't say he was injured. I said he wasn't 100% healthy yet. He had been injured.
He was healthy.
Oh my God, Flex! You
You
don't want me to answer you don't want me to answer your questions. You want to answer them for me. I'm telling you, he was not 100% healthy at the beginning of last season. He wasn't.
All right. Okay. All right.
Now, I will
This
tell
kid
you,
took
I
Corey
agree.
Couch, right?
I will tell you that I agree with you. I don't understand that even if he was 75% healthy, why he wasn't playing more. I mean, I'll agree with you on that.
He should have been starting. But look, I'll give you two more examples, and I'm going to get off. And one of them is about one of your favorite guys of all time, Alonzo Highsmith, right? Give you another example, right? First, I'll tell you about another one this year, Corey Couch. Corey Couch, he didn't just become better than Al Blades and DJ Ivey. He's been better. But those guys down there, like previous regimes, they're not the Jimmy Johnson-ist type. Not that they have to be a great coach like Jimmy, but I mean in the aspect of if you're better, you're playing. Manny and those guys down there have this seniority thing, which is why they wouldn't put Russo ahead of Patchen, which is why they didn't put Couch ahead of Ivy or Blades. He's been better. And here's the last one, right? Last year, no, it was a few years ago, Alonzo Highsmith, one of your favorite people, he came out to a practice, right? And when he came out to practice, our two starting running backs at the time were Joseph Yearby and the guy that got cut from the Dolphins, the kid from Booker T. What was his name?
Mark Walton.
Yearby and Mark Walton, right?
Yep.
And Alonzo was at practice, no bullshit, Gary. Alonzo was at practice for 30 minutes and said, just like this. This is what he said. He said, and I know because I got friends. He said, hey, that's the starting running back over there. Why those two dudes starting? And people thought he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Point I'm making and bringing that up, because I love when you kept talking about Alonzo would have turned this program around, and you're right, is that the coaches that we've had and that we have now, they play too many politics, and they're not good evaluators like that. Because if they were, things like this wouldn't happen. But in ending, Gary, I just want to say, Gary, please, it's not the players. It's never players at Miami. It's always the coaches. Not that we can win national championships with these players, but we should be at least 9, 10 wins every year, which then, what happens then when you win 9 and 10 games every year, your program builds. Now those blue chippers and those elite players, now they start coming. But if the coaching isn't there first to get the most out of the talent, to get us at a consistent 9 or 10 wins, which we've had the talent to be at 9 or 10 wins for the last 10 years, then the elite talent is hard for them to come. And that's the problem. It's always the coaches. All
right, Flex. So
you got a big microphone at those coaches, man. It's not the players.
All right, but
we're not saying we can win a national championship. I'm not saying we can win a national championship, Gary. Don't misunderstand me.
But no, let me say something in support of what you're saying. Let's look at the last 6-7 years. We had the Mark D'Onofrio, Al Golden shit show. Total shit show, right? So Golden gets fired. We hire Mark Richt, who
shouldn't have hired him.
Huh? Well, it was a celebrity hire. It was a celebrity hire. It seemed sexy at the time, but he was burnt out. He didn't have it in him anymore, and he very quickly burnt out here. Okay, now we hire Manny, who had never been a head coach before, who's having a phenomenal year too right now, but he doesn't have any street cred out in the recruiting circles or anything like that.
He should have never been hired either.
We're doing a great job of getting these South Florida kids this year, but Manny can't go out on a national recruiting level and go toe to toe with Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney and these guys. I mean, he's just not there at that point of his career yet. So, I mean, the point you're making is legit. I think there's a lot of circumstances that go into it. However, I don't think it applies to every school, because I think most of these schools that are in the same ballpark as us in that stat that you're talking about are in a similar boat. I mean, I don't think any of them are achieving at a much higher level than what we are.
If you go find any program that has 30 active players in the NFL and that hasn't been below number 8 in the last 10 years, every one of those programs is a better program than we have been in the last 10 years. I went through it myself. You can do it and bring it on your show next week. All right?
All right,
Good
Flex.
talking to you, Gary.
All right, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. Yep, thanks for being part of the show. All right, let's take a deep breath here. 563-999-3550. You hit the 1 on your keypad if you want to come on the show as we head to the home stretch. Let's go back to the 786. You are live on CaneSport Live.
Gary, how are you, my friend?
Hey, what's up, everything? How you doing this week?
Oh man, I'm doing great, but man, I was overwhelmed. Flex had some great points, but he had a tough time just trying to convey it to you because he's so adamant and he's done so much work. He's got some great research there.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong on a lot of the stuff he's saying. It's just not as clear cut as he thinks. You know?
Right, no, exactly. And the one thing that he didn't convey to you is the number of picks, day one picks, first round picks, and the number of second round picks, number of third round picks. You can have 38. The value of guys that are in the NFL right now, look at how many of them are actual starters. Look at how many are actual Pro Bowlers. Perennial Pro Bowlers are all pros. And that's where you see the differentiation and impact of talent. You can have a lot of talent, but if you don't have a guy under center or in the shotgun, whatever you want to call it these days, and you don't have a premier pass rusher, and you don't have a premier corner, you're not going to have guys that are going to be in the first two rounds. That's
You're absolutely right.
That's how football is. It's a different sport. So,
and I'm glad Flex is still listening because that's the point I was trying to make to him. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. Like most,
he's right.
He's right on a lot of his points, but like most top 20 level programs, and you know we should be we recruit as a top 20 program. We should be a top 20 program. Most top 20 programs have around 30 players in the National Football League within a few numbers of those.
Correct. And when you look at the last 16 years, and I did the numbers myself, it's the coaching changes and the impact. You've gone through almost 10 offensive coordinators since 2004.
Yep.
There's no continuity there. Look at defensive coordinators. There's no continuity there either. So he's right. But when we've got these guys, especially the young ones like Baker, people like myself and like maybe him, I'm not sure, but we don't have tolerance or patience for a guy. So the guy can never develop here totally. And it's like every other endeavor you do in life, every other career you do in life, you've got to learn your craft. And the only way to get better and better as a coach and as a teacher is to fail at times. And it sucks, but it's like everything else you do in life. You're not just going to go ahead and be automatic on everything. It doesn't work that way. And with regards to Greg Rousseau, I've made that point several times, Gary. But you and I said the same thing. There's got to be something that they're not seeing. And what it was with Greg was he did have a bad back, but it was also he was blowing assignments, and a kid that was ahead of him. Right now, I think he leads either second or third in the country in sacks in Paxton. Okay, so that kid was doing all the right things in practice with the right technique, doing the things, and you earn. You get graded on. You look at your practice, and you earn. But there's some guys like Tiger Clark way back when aren't practice players.
Yep.
The instincts when the lights turn on, they take over.
Well, what you're saying is what I was trying to tell Flex, but he wasn't really wanting to let me get a word in, so we kind of ended up talking over each other. But the thing is, like,
I love the passion.
Yeah, but passion's off the charts. But let's talk about the Corey Couch. It was the middle of the season before they started playing him as extensively as they are now. But he's a freshman who didn't have spring practice. It was probably the middle of the season before they felt comfortable putting him out there that he knew what the hell he was doing and he wasn't going to bust. Because you start busting, you start losing. And you start losing, and everybody like us starts screaming for your job. So, it's not so easy for these coaches, to just throw a young kid out there until you feel comfortable that he knows what the hell he's doing. Marcus Clark makes a good play against Duke, and everybody's ready to put him in the starting lineup. Well, Mike Rumpf and Blake Baker are not going to have that level of readiness. I'm sorry, they're just not. They're going to have to bring him along a lot more before they're going to throw him out there against North Carolina Saturday to get his butt beat and cost you a victory.
And if you look at what the Corey Couch did as a true freshman last year, he had, I think, 14 or 15 snaps against Florida. Go back and look at the film because we had somebody that was out, if I'm not mistaken. He went ahead and did a really decent job for a true freshman. And, of course, he was redshirt later on. But those players that have the actual instincts when things are going full speed, An example is a kid from Houston at middle linebacker. He's not the fastest. He's not the strongest. He doesn't look like he's in great shape. He had a bad knee. And the kid just is always around the ball. Corey Couch is always around the ball. Marcus Clark is going to be around the ball. The instincts of a player. Now, they're not 4-star kids. They're not 5-star kids, but they're ball players. And if you infuse enough talent at different positions and you have the difference makers in those right spots, which are at quarterback, at defensive back, defensive pass rusher, and obviously a corner, and with decent receivers, you're going to be a good team in today's college football world. That's just the way it is. That's the game, the way the game has evolved. But I do feel that as big a critic as I have been of Manny, and I've applauded him in the last couple of weeks, the true test for me is going to be this Saturday. Because how well do you prepare these kids? Last week, the job was phenomenal. And I know Duke wasn't going to beat us, but I thought they'd give us a better game, to be quite frank. After watching 4 of their games on tape here, I thought they'd be a lot better, especially the Notre Dame game. But, they were able to keep these guys mentally there, start to finish. And when you've got a bunch of guys that are all on the same page, it's very similar to what Spoelstra was able to do with the crew that he had this past year in the bubble. Everybody's on the same page, Gary. Even when things go bad, the next guy steps up. If he has a good base of knowledge and he understands the basics and he lets his instincts take over when the game starts, you should be okay. So again, the best test that we're going to have to really find out how good we are is Saturday. And it's the only
test, because it's a good team that is capable, that we are on an even or playing field, or maybe a little better than. And you're absolutely right. Other than Clemson this year, there really has not been a test like this. We've almost slipped up a few times against teams that probably are maybe like a notch below us, but we managed to win those games. But you're absolutely right. This is a perfect fourth quarter final. I'm not going to call it the final exam because there's going to be a bowl game, but it's certainly a fourth quarter exam.
And it's the ultimate prep for a New Year's Day bowl game against Florida or Texas A&M or wherever the hell we're going to play, because this quarterback is the next best quarterback other than Sunshine. And the way to keep this guy on his heels, Gary, is to change your defenses a lot. Not just on different possessions, but within possessions to play some games. If you watch the Florida State game, he was frustrated. There was full man fronts. Then they drop into a 3 deep. They continue to change things up. And when he has to think that extra second, he's a little hesitant. And Coach Diaz mentioned on Monday, hey, the main thing for them is to get the run game going. Well, you load the box up too heavy, they're cutting back on you, you're going to look stupid. So you've got to have that discipline. So it's the ultimate test for our defense. And unfortunately, I don't see us having the opportunity to really be impactful with the pass rush, because this kid gets the ball out of his hands. Watch the Notre Dame game, especially the end of the third and the entire fourth quarter. What did Notre Dame do? Notre Dame put their guys on an island and said, we're bringing 6. You 5 guys got to guard them. With it wasn't cover 0 every time, but it was a couple of times. And that type of pressure, Gary, is what they're going to have to do just to have a chance. If they don't do that, I don't see them having a good opportunity to keep them off balance, to keep him off balance. Because, Mac's going to make great changes at halftime. He's going to make great adjustments. That guy, that guy's a solid football coach. And his offensive coordinator's done very well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, the other point I just want to make, just to clean up the stuff we've been discussing, like, you take a kid like this Marcus Clark, for example. Let's say every day of the week in practice he's getting, let's say, 50 reps. And so he's got 50 on Tuesday, 50 on Wednesday, 50 on Thursday. And you're sitting there, he's got 150 reps in practice, and he's doing the right thing. Let's say he's doing the right thing 110 of the 150. You can't put him out there for extended duty on Saturday, because he's going to get you beat. And that's what people don't understand. Like, they'll see a kid be out there playing when the game's in hand and say, wow, man, that was a great play. We're watching, even a linebacker, we're watching Corey Flagg run around the other day looking great and the whole thing. But what if Corey Flagg, and only the coaches know this, what if he's not ready to be a full-time starter? We're looking at individual flashes, right? He might not be ready to be a full-time starter.
And that's the thing. You've got too many guys that are in that situation. But the problem that the previous caller mentioned is they're better ball players based on athleticism, based on instinct, and some of the guys who are maybe a little bit better in terms of scheme, reaction, knowing exactly where to be, those type of things. Where last year was horrific on 4th and 17, and Bandy was in the wrong spot. That just still blows my mind to this day. But
right.
You look for that experience, and they're able to execute a little bit better. And there's a fine line between putting more ball players and tackle players out there than guys who know how to stay within the defense. And if there's too much of one or the other, you're going to either die a slow death or you're going to get murdered.
Yep.
So you have to pick your poison.
Yep.
And that's the situation Blake's going to be in. I mean, I don't know how they're going to handle it. But you might even see Frierson have to go out and match out on an island a little bit and put Corey in the slot at times. You might see some of that if they don't feel that the younger kids are quite ready. One guy that knows the defense in and out and is physical enough to maybe have to bounce outside to help out a little bit, and he came here as a corner, and he's done it at times, is Frierson. And did it at Virginia Tech for at least the last 3 series. He was at his corner. So, it depends on how they're going to go about it. But look for them to try to play games. And their defense doesn't scare me. But the one thing they have the propensity to do is they try to force turnovers. They do try. If you look at the amount of plays that they're trying to, gauge the ball out of there, at the same time, guys are getting an extra 3 or 4 yards on runs or after contact. There's a lot of that with this group like North Carolina. So they are going to try to force turnovers. That is a priority for them. So this is going to be one hell of a game, and I'm hoping we're able to win the game, Gary. But to me, this is the ultimate test. Very, very impressed with what they did last week. Regardless of what happened. When you take a look at the entire situation, Manny Diaz and his staff had those guys ready to play.
No doubt.
And that's a tribute to them as teachers.
You
got to point out the good with the bad. And if you don't do that, then, you have a skewed perception of what football really is.
Well, I think that's, as a coach, I think that's Manny's greatest trait. I mean, is that kids he gets kids ready to play. His kids are always emotionally into the game.
Thanks for letting me be on. And go Canes, buddy.
All right, everything. Good talking to you. Yeah, well, I mean, that's Manny's greatest trait is, he gets the kids ready to play, and they play hard. I don't remember a game since Manny's been at Miami where I've said, man, Manny's kids just, weren't ready to play. I mean, they always come to the stadium ready to play. Sometimes they're not good enough. Sometimes the coaches aren't good enough or whatever, but they do show up ready to ball, and that's the kids' credit, and that's to Manny's credit and the staff's credit. Let's go to the 678. You're live on CaneSport Live. 678, you with us?
Hey, how you doing, Gary?
Doing great. Who's this?
Oh, this is Junkie. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Junkie? How you been, man? You haven't been around for a while.
I've been good, man. Hey, a quick question. I heard a lot of callers talking about Mackenzie Milton, right?
Yep.
So with him being in the offense, coming off that type of injury, wouldn't that take away like the running aspect of our offense, like Eric King add that element, which makes it a little different?
He was a good runner when he played. Now, if he's really 100% healthy, like they say,
right,
then I think he would run. Yeah. Like, I don't think you would run him as much as you run King, but I mean, I don't think you would be afraid. Look at Tua. Look at Tua with the Dolphins. When he has to run, he runs.
But Tua injury was different from Mackenzie injury.
But he still had a major hip injury, right, Junkie? It was still a major hip injury.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, like Mackenzie was almost like Alex Smith, like
I know,
almost lose a leg type deal.
I know. They thought they were gonna have to amputate.
Pass away from it, like to me that's just like I don't now that, but that will give us that pass, that more so pass out of that offense, red offense more so than the run pass. But we might not have to run because Chaney look like he might be more a beast than McGahee was. Like McGahee big year when he get around that age, like so. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I keep hearing people say the Knighton's better than Chaney, but I'll tell you what.
No way. No way.
When I watch the games, Chaney looks better to me.
Chaney might end up being better than McGahee when he come around that junior year. I mean, he just man, when he step on the field, you just like, hey, number two, he a dude. Like
he flashes big time.
Yeah, he just. But this is the thing that we're missing about this season, Gary, that I wanted to point out, because I think this get lost in the 8-1. We haven't played anyone. The loss to Clemson, disrespect. This is the thing now. We play a conference only schedule basically, and we lost to Clemson. So when you look at this season, had we played our regular schedule, we'll be undefeated playing Clemson in the ACC championship, and that's all that would matter, And then it'll be this time of the season. So, I mean, this season to me, I felt was all about recruit. Because when we get the 21 class, we're getting like at least 5 day one impact players coming in. It's going to make big time contributions just from the 21 class. Not to mention the old line that's going to be steady building. Zion Nelson can easily be talked about leaving early next year. That's probably why Austin got the offer, because like Zion can have that type of season, and then you talk about guys like Walker that had a year already and hadn't even touched the field, so he's doing basically what Jalen Phillips did. Like our O-line can be a special group, and then you put Van Dyke in, maybe he don't give us the element that King does, but when you look at it, everywhere else is going to be dynamic. It's not going to be just okay. You talking about if Harley comes back, well, we don't know, but even if him and Pope come back, okay, they'll be seniors. Then you talking about guys like Brinson coming in, guys like Smith coming in, guys like Curtis coming in, like who can take it to the house, like at any moment. Every receiver on the field can catch it and be out, touchdown. Then with our running backs, they only getting older. With the O-line that's in place hey, look, this year we did exactly what we were supposed to do. I feel. I think come Saturday, I think we too much for Carolina. I mean, Sam Howell, he's decent, but think about it. Last year we should have beat them, and last year's team isn't nearly as good as this team. You talking about every aspect. Punt, well, the punter was here, but field goal kicking, leadership, quarterback play. It's night and day from that team, and we gave up a fluke play that ended up costing us that game. I think this year we steamroll because we see it. Like the team see where they can be. I feel this that the year, just like we're gonna end up doing. That's why we never moving up in the playoffs. It feels just like the year where we beat Florida State, but Florida State went and played Oklahoma and got beat 13-0 or something like that. The next year we won it. That's 2,000 years. This building up to be just like that. I mean, I don't know how the quarterback situation. You know, we get Milton, he'll run the offense, but with the players that he's gonna have around him, with the line that he'll have in place, man, it's building up to like that 2,000 year. So next year, you know, it's us and Clemson, because Notre Dame will go back to whatever they're gonna do, and we'll be in our regular conference, and we just proved it. Hey, we can beat every team in our conference. We just did it this year.
Yeah.
So, you know,
all right,
that's
Junkie.
all I want. Yeah.
Good to hear from you again, man.
Oh, yeah,
thanks for calling in.
Man.
All right, man. We'll talk to you next week. All right, this edition of CaneSport Live is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there's never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage, and you never need to think about refinancing again. You set it and you forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you're guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. So you feel like you're paying a little too much money on your mortgage every month. You want to see if you can cut that down a little bit. All you got to do is give Kyler Koppelman a call today. His number is 323-607-8802. That's 323-607-8802. Or you can email Kyler directly at kkoppelman@jfqlending.com. That's KKOPPELMAN@jfqlending.com. And all that information is on the message board at canesport.com. If you didn't get a chance to jot it down right now, JFQ Lending is an equal access lender. They're licensed in over 40 states. So if you want to save some money on your monthly mortgage payment, if you want to do some refinancing and, you know, maybe take the family on a nice trip or something when this coronavirus garbage is away from us, or, you know, want to do some improvements to your house and that kind of anything you want to do, mortgage related and financing related, give Kyler a call and see if he can help you out, and tell him you're from CaneSport, and he'll be ultra excited to give you the best deal that he can. All right, let's go to the 386. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Hey, Gary, how we doing?
Doing good. Who's this?
All right, it's Willie again. I see your show about over. I had several questions, but
yeah, I got you and one more. Go real quick.
All right, I just want to ask one question. Of the current commits that we have, you have any inside information on who might enroll early?
Oh man, I do. Let me see if I can give it to you really fast here. If not, I'll defer till next week when we're going to talk recruiting. Let me see if I have that list broken down as early entries. All right, I do not have that in front of me right now, but we will have that next week. We're going to talk a lot of recruiting next week, and we'll answer that. Just make sure you're listening next Tuesday night, and we'll answer that question for you. All right? I mean, there's several of them. There's several of them that are going to be early entries. I just don't have them broken down right in front of me right this minute.
All right, we'll check in next week.
All right, man. Yeah, check in next week. Thanks, Willie. All right, last call of the night. Let's go out to the 973. You're live on CaneSport Live.
Come on, Jerry. Why you wait for me to be last? But that's okay.
Dude, you got to call in earlier. Who's this, Ross? Who's this, Ross?
Gary. Yeah.
What's up, Ross?
Yeah, you had a lot of yes men on that phone tonight with you, agreeing to everything you said. That Flex was right.
Not Flex. Flex didn't agree.
Flex got at you, Gary. He got at you, and you had to listen, and you knew. And Mr. Everything came on and kind of like agreed with him and everything. Come on, while he was saying those
Flex was about 65% right on what he was saying.
Yeah,
he didn't. There were a couple things that he didn't really know, which I hope I hope we helped him out a little bit.
You wouldn't hear him all the way out. That's why. So while he was saying those stats, I was checking. And the same way you could say that Miami may have practice players on those teams, so does all the other teams that you named in front of us. I checked.
Of course.
Also, they also got practice players too. So if you add it up, it averages out. But if you add it up, it average out. That's all I got to say, Gary. If you add it up, it average out. Anyway, listen. Couple of things. I take victories And again, the caller before that saying that we were undefeated in our conference, absolutely. You know I get on Manny. But if Manny win that game Saturday, if we beat Carolina, he's the coach of the conference. He's the coach of the ACC, not Kelly and Notre Dame. It's not Kelly. It's Manny Diaz if he wins that game Saturday. See,
I agree.
Everybody's kissing Notre Dame butt. Everybody's making it. Notre Dame is using the ACC, and ACC better wake up and stop being used.
I don't agree that they're using the ACC. I think the ACC is using this year, Ross, as an audition to strengthen its case to Notre Dame that they need to come into the conference.
Hogwash. They're being used.
Well, I'm not saying they're gonna, but I think the ACC would love them to.
Harry, let me hold my opinion. I'm sure a lot of the people on the line would agree. They're being used. They've been being used, and they're going to continue to be used because they have no backbone. Okay? Listen.
Ross, how has the ACC come out worse for the wear, letting Notre Dame play in the conference this year?
Listen, at the end of the day, they used us. Because if you really want to think about it, the team that should be playing each other is Clemson, Miami again. But we
played Clemson, though, so I would agree with you if we didn't get to play Clemson, but we did get to play Clemson.
Yeah, but listen, again, and we weren't supposed to originally, and they threw us Clemson so we could catch that L, so we don't have to play in the championship game. It's 9 different ways we could look at it, okay? But we always come out on the bad part of the stick. But then let me move on.
Oh, my God. Ross, did we have an opportunity to win that game? Did we? Didn't we go? Wait a minute. Didn't we go to Clemson with we could have won the game. We weren't good enough, and it wouldn't have mattered whether we played it in September, October, November, December. Clemson's better than us right now.
I'm not saying they're not, but we get another chance. But we would have gotten another chance at them if we were supposed to. But anyway, again, we can't spend 5 hours on this because it won't work with you. It won't work with you. Let's move on. Because you're not going to agree. I'm not going to agree with you. If that game comes Saturday, if I see McLeod back on that field as a starter, that would be embarrassing. He should never see the field again as a starter. Period. Agree or disagree?
I don't have a feel for where Corey Flagg is mentally. I will say that I loved what I saw of him at Duke. I thought he was moving around. He looked like he knew what he was doing. It looked like Blake Baker had a game plan that he was in Duke's back pocket. Everything looked well aligned on Saturday against Duke. I don't think that guarantees that everything would be well aligned on Saturday against North Carolina.
It didn't just happen again. It just doesn't happen just against Duke. He flags other places. And you know what, Gary? I'm tired of listening to you and some of these other players guys that come on and said that we didn't play good towards the season. If I'm not mistaken, both you, Mr. Everything, and a couple of other callers was like, oh, you better watch out for that Virginia Tech defensive corner. You know, they've been playing great. The defense will give you this. The defense will give you that. Oh, the defensive coach from Pittsburgh, watch out for him. He's been doing this. He could do that. He could set up this. And we trashed all of them. We trashed all of them, Gary. Stop putting our players down and stop putting the team down. Talk to you,
Ross, nobody's putting anything down. I mean, all people can comment on is what they see in front of them. I mean, you do realize we won 3 games in the middle of the season by a total of 11 points.
It don't matter. We won the game because if we lost the game, you would have been all over them. And again, you keep talking about we don't have impact players, and when people come on here and
but you can't be annoyed at people for not going over the top.
Because you're the leader of the pack when you keep telling me my defensive ends wasn't any good at the beginning of the season, and then you said they wasn't good in the 3rd game, then you said they wasn't that good in the 4th game. They're not impact players. They're not impact the 4th game. They're not impact players. Now you're changing your story, and you're saying they're going to get picked. You know, I listen to your show. I love your show, but
you understand that none of those guys had played one play for Miami before this year, right?
No, not at the time. No. We played 4 games, 5 games, whatever it was, and you were still calling them non-impact players.
All right, Ross, let me ask you a question. Just answer my question, yes or no. The Jalen Phillips that you've seen the last couple weeks, better or worse than what you saw at the beginning of the season?
He was playing just the same, and I told her the reason why he wasn't getting sacked.
No chance.
No, you're not.
The last few weeks, he's taken it to a whole nother level, man.
You're doing the same thing your callers. You're doing the same thing you accuse your callers to do. You ask the question, I'm answering it, and you cut in. Don't cut in. Ask the question. Let me answer it.
All right. Well, I'm disagreeing with you.
Well, you disagree right away.
How about who else you want to talk about? De'Ara King's been consistent, though. He's been consistently great the whole year. Quincy Rochet, I would say the same thing. The last month he's been at a whole nother level.
But you also said Rochet was not an impact player. And I was trying to tell you
he wasn't the first few weeks of the year. He has been the last few weeks. Now, why would that be, Ross? Ross, wait a minute. Let's talk for a minute. Wait 1 second, Ross. God, you and Flex drive me crazy. Let's talk about why that might be. Wait a minute. You can come at me all you want, but let me speak. Listen, why would it be? Why would I have that opinion, and why would it be? And here's why. Okay, conditioning. These kids didn't properly condition in the off season. No. Wait a minute, Ross. No spring practice. Okay, no spring practice. Quincy Rochet is coming into a new defense that he had to learn, and he didn't have a spring practice. He had 15 practices before the season started. Of course, he's playing better in November. He's in shape now. He knows what the hell he's doing. You're seeing the best of him.
But, Gary, if you would have said that and painted that way and put it on the floor that way and said, hey, guys, give it a couple weeks, then we're going to start seeing the fact that he could do it. You never said that.
Okay.
You said you don't
Ross, no, I didn't say that. Ross, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, I'm good. But I'm not that good. I can't predict what a guy's going to do 3 weeks down the road.
You're predicting that he was bad, but you predicting he wasn't an impact.
I never said he was bad. I did not say he was bad. I said he was not elite, playing at an elite level yet. That's what I said.
Because he didn't play.
That doesn't mean bad. He was never bad.
Because you said he was playing the not so elite competition in the American Conference. How do we know that he's going to be it? And guess what? You have to eat those words today, and that's all I'm trying to tell you. Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you
why? How many sacks did he have in the American Conference last year?
It don't see now. Here you go again.
Why? Because I'm not supporting the point you're trying to make.
Did we pick him up because he was garbage, or did we pick him up because he was good? Did we bring him in as a transfer because he was good,
Ross,
or not? Yes or no?
How many sacks did he have last year at Temple? And then we got to end this call because we're at the end of the show. How many did he have? I think it was 14, 15, right?
Yes,
okay, Ross, listen, this is going to be the end for tonight. He had like 15 sacks. I don't have the number in front of me, but he had like 15 sacks. This year, even with his elite last few weeks, which I'm agreeing with you, he has 4 sacks, Ross. 4 sacks. Okay? Listen, we can pick this up next week. Listen, we can pick this up next week. You got a week to chew on this, okay? I gotta go, Ross. Ross, I gotta go, man. The show's over, Ross. The show's over. Ross, my man, the show is over. Call in next week. Let's pick up this conversation. But do your research. The guy was a sack machine last year at Temple. He had like 15 sacks. This year, even after the Duke game, where he admittedly was a beast, even after the last month, where he's been unbelievable, he has 4 sacks this year, Ross. All right. Ross, we'll pick it up next week. All right, guys, I want to thank everybody that called in. Great show. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's see. We got North Carolina Saturday afternoon. Obviously, huge game for the Hurricanes. We'll come back next Tuesday to talk about that. We'll set the stage for signing day on Wednesday, and we'll see if there's any updates on Jeff Garcia and Mackenzie Milton and all the other drama that's going on right now in recruiting. So for now, I'm going to say good night, everybody.